Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today I wanted to talk about the maps of Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. Oh, let me get some music started, I forgot to do that. With me today, well last time when I talked about Path of Radiance, I invited Elat and we gushed for way too long, it took almost 4 hours. So this time I invited someone who has a little bit different opinions about Tellius than I do, and so I think maybe it might provide a more well-rounded discussion. Akira, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Akira I'm like a bit of a variety channel of Fire Emblem content, I guess. The reason why I'm here is because I made a video about how I very much don't like Path of Radiance, and I think it's slightly too beloved by the Western fan base. But Radiant Dawn I actually am more complimentary towards. I liked it a lot more than Path of Radiance.
Interesting. Okay, I guess we'll keep an eye out for that review whenever that comes out, I guess. um,
Yep.
we'll see. Not to force your hand or anything, but I will link the Path of Radiance video, I guess, down below, unless you have another video you want linked instead. You've been talking about efficiency lately, and we're not going to jump in on that too much, but some of these maps may or may not apply. Without further ado, I do want to give a shout out, special thanks to C2 Piccoli for being subscribed as a member to the channel of the Laguzguard tier. If you want to support the channel, that's the best way to support it directly. It begins at less than $1 a month. Anyway, let's get into it. So, first of all, I guess the biggest thing to start out with is how does the game treat their intro map, treat their prologue map? And I think that Radiant Dawn's prologue map is one of the better prologues in the series. Maybe just because you
Uh,
have more than 3 units on the field.
Well, I mean, it's not that you have like more than 3 units on the field, right? Because you literally have two, and then you have three. But I think it does. I think it is one of the better maps.
Well, I was
With
also
intro.
saying more than 3 units total on the field, including yours
Oh,
and the
you're right.
enemies.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Because it's like, okay, it's like Lyn versus Bozba, or like, even Path of Radiance, Ike versus Boyd, and then Greil. But this, you have Micaiah, you have Edward. The game teaches you, hey, do chip damage with your ranged unit, then finish them off with melee. Or you can vice versa it and, feed the experience to Micaiah instead. Not too much to say about this map, but it is a failable prologue. Provides some interesting combat encounters whilst not being unfair.
I think something that is very interesting that I know as a result of being in the Final Efficiency Discord is that the enemies who are around like the three enemies who are around like the bottom area, who kind of end up like surrounding Edward. Like Edward's basically perfectly calibrated to be able to take 3 hits, which on hard mode he will because he doesn't have weapon triangle advantage against them, and like he'll survive that, which I think is really cool.
Okay, yeah, and then you can herb and... Do you herb and sacrifice then, or do you just finish them off?
Like you'd like either use a Bonneray or you'd herb and sacrifice, yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
So it's cool. Like there is like some signs already there of some benchmarking taking place, which I think is pretty neat.
that's cool, yeah. And it teaches you part of the map of like, okay, use your healing items. Don't be afraid to use your freaking healing items, because this is Radiant Dawn, the game with the best healing items in Fire Emblem.
They're so good, yeah. When I
uh,
saw like 10 use herb for 10 HP and I saw 8 use Vulneraries for 20, I was like, wow.
I know, right? I'm gonna say that the prologue plays pretty well. I'm never really... it's not like other prologues where I'm just like, okay, come on, let's get to the map already. It's like, okay, we're in, and we're playing Fire Emblem right away.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that because like it is an actual map, right? Like it's not FE8, Seth and Erica like run towards the first enemies. Everything dies in enemy phase.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I'm... this is where I'm trying to think of, like, do I like most of the Dawn Brigade maps? Because, like, I kind of think that Chapter 1 plays pretty well, too. Maybe I need different tiers. Maybe as we get later, we'll see more kind of, you know...
Differentiation taking place, yeah.
I'll say not bad as the meh tier. It has slightly more positive things. Yeah, Chapter 1 as well, I think is pretty solid. You get introduced to So I haven't played Radiant Dawn in a couple years, and so forgive me if I'm slow on names or facts of the map, but Nolan,
Yes,
who
he does
is
join.
the tank of your team for a little bit, if nothing else. He might not get strength very easily, on most playthroughs, it feels like, but he certainly can take hits and sometimes dish him out. It encourages you to split up, take the houses, but also you have a small time pressure to get to the end. It's not super strict, but if you're not prepared and if you're it encourages you to not overly turtle naturally, which is kind of nice. Any thoughts on the efficiency side, I guess, because you seem to know more about that through Fishcord.
So yeah, I mean, like this map is like I think it's pretty alright. Like the first village is I think a bit of like a cop out, isn't it? Just like a herb or like maybe a vuln or
I
something.
think it's a
And
vulnerary, the
everyone
one just to your left,
and
yeah.
everyone starts with a healing item on them already. But like the hand axe from the second village is cool, and there is like an enemy actually standing on it. So in order to like guess it, you need to actually kill the enemy and then have someone else use the action to get there. And you only have 4 units, right? So like you have to actually like think about where you're moving everyone, etc. Especially with that time pressure. I like the time pressure that's introduced so early as well, actually.
Yeah, definitely encouraging you to, hey, push forward, get some time. Uh, yeah, low level time pressure introduced early is nice. Then you also have some reinforcements from the back left to also push you forward. But I mean, yeah, honestly, not a bad map either here.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a pretty decent second map as far as as far as the series goes.
Yep. And as far as if we ever need to refer to anything, I have the Fire Emblem WOD pulled up, but unfortunately Radiant Dawn is only available in Spanish here, so it might be a little bit less than helpful.
I think we'll manage somehow.
Probably. It's not too bad. At least like the item names are usually in English. Chapter 2, 1-2. We have the I was just gonna leave it down here for a second. You're introduced to Soth after a little bit. He comes up at the top. Is this an escape map?
It's Laura. It's Laura arrives.
Laura arrives, yeah, because you have Laura as well. So you're introduced. You have your staff healer. You're introduced to height advantage and terrain. More enemies, more chests. A couple
Yeah, I
of
mean,
interesting things. Thani and the
I
energy
quite like
drop.
it.
Yeah.
I quite like this map. Yeah, like I think that Radiant Dawn does like a pretty good job of like introducing a lot of the mechanics. I think because in the first map it's like use your healing items. You can use sacrifice. The second one there's like the time pressure. There's the villages, right? And then now we've got ledges.
Yeah. Path of Radiance is pretty good with small scale, and Radiant Dawn even more so, I think. The maps really feel well designed for small groups of units doing tactical things. It's once you get to the larger army stuff that things get a little more iffy, especially for for Path of Radiance, excuse me, which is why the back half of that game is has some iffy designs there. But early game map so far so good. Next map is the Prison Escape. You're introduced to Aaron. You're also introduced to hidden items. How do you feel about hidden items?
I do not like hidden items. I especially don't like them because, like, in the context of Radiant Dawn, like, one, they're everywhere. Two, some of them are actually important items, like not this, like the one on not this map, but like one in the next map. And it's the fact as well that like thieves don't even have like a guaranteed 100% chance to get them is something that I find really inexcusable personally.
Yeah, they have increased chance, if I remember right, but it's
Yeah,
not 100%.
it's like 60% extra chance, and then like luck and biome makes up the difference. And it's just like I don't know. I just don't think that's good design personally.
Yeah, I'm not sure if if WOD shows the location of all of the hidden items or talks about them, because I'm not seeing it here. Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, it's like, some enemies drop vulneraries, herbs, steel lance, steel axe. There's the Does the boss drop a discipline, I want to say?
No,
No,
it's
not the
something you have
boss,
to
the
steal from
cavalier.
him. No, you have to steal it off him.
Oh yes, it's a stealable, so yeah, they do a lot of stealable stuff, and this map can be a little bit difficult because
No one can
is there
die.
a
No
time
one can
pressure as
die.
well?
So in terms of time pressure, like there's quite a lot of reinforcements, which like it's one of those things that if you're using Soph to fight them, it's not that big of a deal. But if you've got people spread out, then it kind of is because they can't deal with groups of enemies very well.
Yeah, because like the reinforcements come from the left, right,
They
as
come
well
from
as
like
behind
they
you.
come from the left, they come from behind you, they come from like down in the bottom left as well, which is that's a weird placement. But like the ones in like the like middle left and the top, like those ones are actually like vaguely in important positions.
Yeah, especially because you have to keep your yellow units alive as well, Amy and Kurth, which Kurth is under no threat, but Amy, depending on where you put her, could be at risk.
I don't think that Amy has to stay alive, but all the blue units need to stay alive, which includes Aaron if you recruit him.
Yes, so if you recruit him, he has to stay alive. If you don't, then it doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna put this under not bad tier. I'm debating putting it under play as well, because I still kind of like this map. It's definitely memorable, but it's one of those that we're starting to get into the maps where it's like, okay, you know, one or two wrong moves and it just like snowballs out of control, or someone dies and
Yeah.
it just, yeah. So it's like,
I personally put it into like not bad. Like there are elements of it that I
Yeah.
really like. Like the elements that I like about it is that I like that like the Cavalier like functional boss has
Mm-hmm.
the drop has like the stealable, which means that, you know, like discipline can be useful. So like having Soph steal it is a good idea, and obviously he's your best combat unit as well. And if he's stealing, he can't do combat. And also something else I really like about it is that like there's some real like benchmarking taking place with Micaiah and Soph support, where on the previous map, Soph is able to one round like nearly all the enemy types apart from maybe the enemies who are in like the same room as the boss and the energy drop. Here, there's quite a few of them that he can't, unless he's using like the card and he's also in support range of Micaiah because their support gives them +2 attack.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Like I noticed it during my playthrough and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So like, that's what I like about it. What I don't like about it is I don't like the fact that everyone has to live. I find that really irritating.
Yeah, it's like most players will try to keep everyone alive anyway, but the fact that, and this is much more egregious just in the Dawn Brigade section than anywhere else, but every single unit being a game over condition is pretty brutal, and I'm not necessarily sure how much we can blame the map for that, but at the same time, it makes any flaws in map design or any annoyances in it that much more extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty bad because like in the cases of like the prologue 1-1, even 1-2 before like Soph shows up, right? Like I can see how if you don't have everyone alive, you could very easily end up getting soft locked, right? But at this point, I feel like you probably could have a couple people die and it would be fine.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you're starting to approach maps where it's like, hey, you have some optional recruits and optional deployments.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, how do you feel about Meg? And her introduction map where she gets one-rounded by everything?
So, it's funny that you put that in pretty bad, because I actually quite like that map, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not bad, to be honest. It's one of those where it's like, first of all, more hidden treasure. I mean, this is just going to be a fact everywhere, but this one at least makes sense to have hidden treasure, because, you know,
yeah, it's a gold
there's
room.
literally gold all over the floor. You're introduced to enemy Lagoos. You have some interesting opportunities to, well, if you attack them when they're untransformed, they're a lot weaker, but you also get a lot less experience from them, so you're kind of incentivized to KO them when they're transformed. But when they're transformed, they double all their stats, and, you know, start, like, one-rounding your army.
Yeah. I think I do quite like this map because like I like the fact that there are the breakable walls there, and like you obviously start off like in the center in this very enclosed space initially until the walls start getting broken down. At which point it's a bit like you only have so many units that can tank an attack, right?
Yeah,
As I said, Meg is not particularly good at that. I believe she can survive one tiger hit and she doesn't get dulled by them, but like, she gets
it
killed by two.
depends on what weapon you give her, because I think if you try to give her a weapon that slows her down at all, she will get doubled.
Oh, I see. Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, so like
But
my
yeah,
initial reaction is, oh yeah, give her a steel sword or whatever, and then she gets doubled, and then you're sad.
makes sense. I also think that something that's really nice about this map is that because you get access to preps before it and the home base, and that means that you have access to like the special item shop. I think it's cool that like because obviously this is you're fighting enemy Lagoos, and they've got the beast killing knife
Yeah, the
there.
the beast slayer or beast killer, whatever it's called.
Yeah, like I think it's quite a nice like you can do without it, but I think it's quite a nice encouragement to be kind of like, you should spend your money on things that seem useful right now.
Yeah, we've given you money, we've given you access to a shop, we've told you these items will only be around once, and then we throw you into a map where immediately that special item is useful. So ultimately, the map does reward this shop, and so I guess in that respect, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we're updating the names of the tiers
I'm
as we
just yeah.
go. Yeah, I mean the biggest critique that I have of this map is that I really don't like the hidden master seal, the hidden coin, whatever. I don't care. Right? The the fact that Beast Foe is a hidden item, I really don't like.
Yeah, like, hey. Also, another thing is, like, you get the Beast Foe scroll, and then you never fight another Laguz until Act 3.
Yeah, that's true. I have to admit, I don't mind that too much because, like, as soon as like I saw it, I was kind of as soon as like I got it, I was like, oh, this is clearly going to be important at some point.
But then, like, they give it to you, and then you don't have a use for it, so you could potentially, give it to, like, Ilyana or someone, and then not knowing, and then have it, have her be shipped away, and then suddenly you're out of it. But I don't
Oh no,
necessarily
that's definitely
I don't
true.
necessarily hate that. It is one of the examples of, hey, here's a really useful item that is a hidden item, and it's like, yeah, it's not mandatory, but I mean, good luck without it.
Yeah, I think that like in part three for the Dawn Brigade, like you really appreciate having it somewhere.
Yeah, part 3 is gonna be full of some highs and lows, is what I'm gonna say.
I would agree with that, yes.
Chapter 5. I'm gonna say interesting idea, poor execution for Chapter 5, because it's another example of, hey, it's a defend map where the things and people you're supposed to defend start away from you, and you can't reach them right away. But there's also ledges and desert tiles which slow you down, and there's a lot of units between you and them.
A lot of units,
Like,
yeah.
your army's not really strong enough to fight them. It's like Volug and Soth are gonna be capable of holding their own. The rest of your and maybe Nolan, depending on how many
Yeah,
levels he got.
Nolan should be able to survive one round of combat against like one singular unit.
Yeah,
Any more than that, it's a bit dicey.
it really starts depending of like, okay, your strategy will vary based on who is leveling up well and who you're focusing on. But ultimately, on one hand, they do give you Volug here, you do have Soth here, and Volug, this is a great map for him, just showcasing.
It's such a good map. Such a
It
good map for
is.
him.
If you don't have Volug here, you lose. But speaking of lose, you can lose Jill turn 1.
Yes. And that would be a game over in vanilla. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are elements where it's like, yeah, I don't mind stuff being a little out of your control and determined RNG, but when it's literally turn 1 and a game over condition,
Yeah.
let's not. It's like, this isn't a Battle Before Dawn, but it's still not great.
Yeah, so like the thing about it is that like I made a short about like Jill dying like 5 times on like turn 1 enemy phase before I could like reach her. And it turns out there is a way to like avoid her dying on turn 1, but it literally involves you having to like
Yeah, you have to put a more vulnerable unit, a more...
involves you putting like Volug like literally in the tile where he can get attacked by the fire mage, because otherwise that fire mage will attack Jill, and if all 3 things hit Jill, she dies.
Yeah, basically it's like, yeah, you have to use your units as a blade of armor for the green units, which, I mean, is kind of how green units work in general, but this early and, with this fragile of your army and,
Yeah,
if
I
this
think
type
it
of map came a
feels.
little bit later, it would be a little bit more excusable in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a bit like because like in order to make sure that Volvo definitely doesn't die, if you don't give him the Draco shield that comes on Leonardo back in the prologue,
Mhm.
you need to like make sure that someone else eats one of like the hits of like that like diamond shape that starts directly above your unit's deployment slots.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, you can do some stuff with it. With Volug and Soth, you have counterplay. Hidden items here, I think it's a Shine Bearer is hidden, and a Master Seal you have
So
to steal from, like, a mage that's across the other direction, like, over here.
it's both the Shine Barrier and the Master Seal are stealables, I believe.
Okay.
I don't
Yes,
remember.
I
I don't know if there
see.
are any hidden items on this map because like I was like mostly playing it on voice call with people, and I was like, I'm not searching up what the hidden items are. If you think any of them are important, tell me. If you don't, then don't. And they were like, nothing important here.
Okay, so I'm understanding what the Spanish is now a little bit more. Because we have Dejan Caer al Derrotar, which I think items dropped on death. There's a vulnerary, and Roba, which I guess is steel. There's a vulnerary and a master seal and a shine barrier.
Yes, that seems to be the case.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess maybe I'm meh on this map. What do you think?
So before I realized that Volu like can actually like live through that, and there's ways to like have they'll survive, I was like, what on earth were they thinking?
Hmm.
Now I'm somewhere between like meh and like interesting idea for execution. Because like it is an interesting idea,
Hmm.
but like I don't like the fact that like I just don't like the fact that these green units are game over conditions at this point where your blue unit's already not game over conditions.
Yeah, where you finally is like, hey, cool, I can lose units now. Nope, psych. Um,
Yeah.
I I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember ever actually losing any of the green units. I've played this like game like 6 times, but it has been a couple years since the last time. But I do every single time dread this map and just it's only a 6 turn defend, but I don't know, there's something about this map that just every time I'm just like all my units are just getting overpowered. There's nothing I can do. They're really starting to make it so, hey, if you didn't get good level ups on Edward, he's useless. Leonardo's a
Yeah.
joke. Uh, you know, Meg, who? Nolan, can't double or kill things. It just they're really, especially on hard mode, they're really making you feel weak, which is fine, which I'm fine with. I'm okay not having my units be able to steamroll at the start of the game on hard mode.
Mhm.
But when you're outnumbered like this much, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I have issues with the map, and it might just be more of an emotional response at this point. But I'm gonna leave it at poor, interesting idea, poor execution.
That's fair. I think, like, I obviously don't have like necessarily like that repeated of an experience with it, but I think that like, I don't know. I just don't like the fact that these are like green units that you can't have die. Like, if they were blue from the beginning, then I think that I would put it in like between pretty good and meh. But like, I just don't like having like Jill's weird AI out of my control, which flies and like goes places. I just don't like it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's very fair. Moving on, chapter 6, and really I should say chapter 6A, because chapter
Six
6
one.
is a 6-1, 6-1. We have 2 parts. We have the first one, which is just kind of slow, and the second one, which is a little bit faster, and then either slows down to a halt or Toronio just kind of kills the boss on accident.
Admit, like I much prefer like 6-1 to 6-2, and I
Hmm.
actually quite like 6-1 as well because like the locations of some of those reinforcements are really mean, and like when I say that I mean like in like a good way. Like when those Pegasi appear from like the top, the bottom, the sides, I'm just there like, wow, that's such mean placement. I'm kind of a fan of it.
Yeah, so they're Pegasi spawning in positions where only Jill could move to, so basically you have to let them come to you. And is
Yeah,
6-1 a route map? One sec.
it is route. Yeah,
Yeah, 6-1 is
and like,
route, 6-2 is kill boss.
like I don't mind the fact that it's route because like when like those reinforcements appeared, I was like, oh my god, this is like so mean, but like I kind of love it at the same time. Like if this was a map where everyone had to survive, then I would not like it. But this is already a map where like you can have people die, you have enough people that can rescue. You should be bringing along like Toronio, and like if you really need him to, he can rescue someone out of danger as well, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, Toronio is like, okay, you're finally given your unkillable unit, for 2 chapters. It's this one and the next one you have him for. And he just, like, he can rescue someone and still double.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's never going to get low enough to proc resolve, but if he does, then he, one-rounds everything. He's just so good.
Yeah, I think the map does like a really like good job of kind of like highlighting like both the threat that enemy flyers can pose to you and also like the utility that Jill, even though I don't know, her stats to me were not great, but like she does like her flight does undeniably give her utility. I think the map does like a very good job of like highlighting that benefit.
Yeah. If you, as an aside, if you don't, before this map, give Jill a lot of bonus experience and or stat boosters or whatnot, her combat is actually quite bad.
Yes.
Like, this is why I'm gonna never say that Jill is S tier, because Jill... I don't know, I have issues with the whole argument of, well, she's good if you give her all the stat boosters, she's the most important person. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's like, okay, sure, I'm putting you in a high-powered wheelchair. I'm not... I'm putting you in a super suit. But I'm not judging the suit, I'm judging the person in it, and it could be anyone. This person just happens to give the suit wings. That's the only thing. Which, okay. But even despite, as we said, not having the best combat, being able to fly around, rescue units, get to places that other units can't really... And she does still have a decent combat against the Pegasus Knights. They do
She has good combat against them. Like she does, like she takes barely any damage from them, even without stat boosters or levels. And like she deals like about half their HP in one hit, so like she can 2-round KO them.
Yeah, and granted, they're Pegasus Knights. Most of her units can, aside from whoever ends up untrained.
Yeah, it's just nice that like she can do it without luring the Pegasus closest to your squishies.
Yeah, this map definitely, though, starts to really fundamentally highlight different units are different in this game, and that's okay. Some of your units are just going to be better than others unless you highly invest into them. And the difference between, a legendary general and a trained soldier and a random scrub teenager from the streets.
Bit different.
Yeah,
different.
And you actually feel that here.
Yeah, definitely. Did you want to talk about 6-2 as well?
Yeah, 6-2... 6-2, you fight ballistas for the first time. The enemies around you are very spread out, so you're moving for a couple turns before you really fight more than 1 or 2 things. And then, like, turn 1 or turn 2, this whole cluster of red units turncoats into green units and tries to retreat to the right and down. But depending on what enemies you've left alive, or on retreat AI, or who they just happen to miss unluckily, because most of that cav squad will rescue villagers and then run, so they're all fighting at half efficiency anyway.
Yeah,
and so then
they tend, like, usually a few of them die by the time they even like get to like that kind of like bridge area.
Yeah, and the only reason why Fiona doesn't immediately die is because she has Savior and doesn't lose skill and speed. But even then, it's not a pretty sight. Green units get killed here.
Yeah,
and
it's real sad.
Like, you can rush Volug up and maybe Jill and like a rescued like Soth or something, and save most of them, and you get some bonus experience for each one you save. It's kind of negligible though. You don't get anything else that's major. Or you can just go down the left and like aggro the boss.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think this map is like a bit of a slog, probably because it's like, well, I have to go and save these green units now, and like, I don't know, the boss you have to like lure as well, which like isn't inherently a problem, but just kind of means that like if you really want to, you can like move really slowly through this map, and like it's not small either.
No.
So I really like the opener for it because like you want to get rid of the ballista because like you know Makai is very fragile, so you don't really want her to get hit by a ballista, so you probably want to get things out of the way. And I like the opener, but then after that, I feel like it kind of grinds down to a halt.
Yeah,
Quickly.
it's a bunch of dead turns and dead green units. Something else, if you do send Volug up to the right, because he's the only unit who can really get there effectively because it's heavy movement terrain as well. Is there like 2 or 3 fire mages as well
Yes, there
over
are.
there
There's a
that
couple of fire
can
mazes around.
combine and kill him in like 3 hits?
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, he has like 45 HP and they all do like 20 damage apiece to him, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, anything you do is pretty risky, except for just sending Toronio up and fighting the boss. There are some things, like you can get a Master Seal. I think the boss drops Discipline, or does he... do you have to steal it from him? Or is that a different map I'm thinking about?
I
Yeah,
think you're
Discipline
thinking about 1-3.
Yeah, Discipline was 1-3... Did I think there was
The
a
boss
Paragon here? Why did I... What am I thinking here?
The boss here does drop something. I think he does drop Paragon.
Yes, Paragon. Habilidad Paragon. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. Forgive my Spanish mispronunciation. Yeah, this map I don't hate, but I'm not really excited whenever I play it, so it's meh. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Welcome to a different jail. This one is a little bit less interesting than the Path of Radiance one, although you still are encouraged to free the green units, because I think you get like 100 bonus experience a piece, or some pretty reasonable number of bonus experience for every prisoner that you let escape, I want to say.
I believe it's. I think that is might literally just be only for opening up the door. I'm not even sure they need to escape for it to happen.
Prisioneros que escapen, prisioneros sobrevivientes. If someone understands Spanish better than I do, please, unlock the secrets of this. Yeah, you can have up to 5. There's a turn limit here. Okay, so yeah, you want to clear within 10 turns. You get some bonus experience for opening the doors. You get more if they escape, I want to say.
That makes sense. That makes sense, yeah.
But when you open the doors, they will slowly, kind of walk towards the exit point, which I think is the top left.
It is, yeah.
You also get Tormod's squad over here. Tormod, Morim, and Vika, who can still help out. I know that Danny, will apparently always defend Vika, maybe just on the next map, but all in all, you don't have Toronio, and you don't have access to Fiona, despite her just coming in. And I think you don't have Jill either.
No, you do have Jill. You do have Jill.
Okay, so it's just Toronio and Fiona that you can't deploy.
I believe so.
Okay, yeah.
My thoughts, I don't know. I don't really have strong thoughts in this map at all, so I guess that means it goes into meh by default.
Yeah.
Because
it's...
I don't know. The ledges are obviously still around, they can have an impact on some combat.
The ledges really only influence how your units can move, and how Tormod can sometimes, miss while shooting up a ledge instead of, immediately immolating whoever he's attacking, because he's a pre-promoted fire sage.
Yep.
He's level 10 or 8 or 10 or something. Well, the rest of your units are maybe pushing level 15. You might have used a Master Seal or a lot of bonus experience to get a promotion by this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty meh map, pretty forgettable, to be honest.
Yeah. It's it doesn't do anything as offensive as 1.5 did, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't. I don't know. I do agree that it should be below 1.6.2, because 1.6.2 at least has the interesting opener, right?
That's fair. That's fair. And 162 you can close quickly if you want to by rushing the boss. This one is just kind of... I think it's a Seas map.
It is seas, so Makai has to arrive.
So it's... And that's a pretty long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up for a map that I think is one of the first maps that starts to really get more divisive is the Swamp. How do you feel about the Swamp? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Because this map...
I think it's fine. Because, like, obviously, like, it's annoying to have to, like, try and keep all of, like, the green units alive, but, like, there are things you can do about that. Like, you can have, like, Tormod, like, you can have Tormod on, like, turn 1 bait the Dragon Lord, whatever the class is called. The enemy on the dragon, flying around, who goes around and, like, kills them all. Like, you can have him lure him on turn 1 to get that enemy out of the way. If not, like, Vika will eventually transform and can rescue one of the villagers while transformed as well. The introduction to the four-way dance is cool, I think. I don't know. I kind of enjoy watching like Nyla like run around and shred things a bit.
Yeah, you have to at least admit that they do a pretty good job of using the map animations for the opening map cinematic.
Yeah.
Introducing Raphael, Volug, and Nyla, and then Tormod Squad, and then it's another map where you're in the middle. I think the most annoying thing about this map is that you have low personal deployment slots. But that's because you have like half your army is
it's force
deployed on the other sides, and you just have Soth, Micaiah, and like 4 other units.
Actually, I don't mind the deployment limit that much because I feel like by that point you've probably already like very much identified who you're going to be focusing your experience channels on anyway.
That's fair. That's fair. You have some poison weapons here, and I think you can buy a restore staff if like in the special shop if you want that, or you can just use sacrifice, which will cure any status ailment for the cost of 1 HP. So that's not bad. The swamp is kind of annoying to move through. I think this map has the problem with this map in my mind is really the fact that you have a couple really interesting first few turns trying to rescue the villagers if you decide to. And then it grinds to a halt as there's really no way to get to the island where all the rest of the enemies are, except for this one path here, which is rough terrain, it slows you down, and then you're constantly getting random reinforcements, like at north and south, I want to say.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like south and west.
Yeah, it's south and west.
So you have to leave some units behind, but then...
Yeah, like all the stuff I said earlier is like the stuff that I think is like interesting and like solid, pretty good stuff, but that stuff like drags it down. I personally couldn't put it higher than like pretty good to meh somewhere.
Yeah, it's like bottom of pretty good or top of meh right now. And
I think bottom of pretty good is fine. Yeah,
I'm gonna put bottom of pretty good because at the very least it is a very interesting set piece. One thing to note is that so each of the prisoners on difficult are worth 100 bonus experience. In comparison, every prisoner's door you open in the previous map is 100 bonus experience, and every prisoner that actually makes it to the escape point is 300. So, comparative fractional experience. Like, it's still important. You still want all the bonus experience, but, it's more emotional than actual game reward for keeping them all alive. And I don't think there's a bonus item you get for keeping them all alive. At the very least, I've never kept all 6 alive.
I wouldn't know either because like some of them died and I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, and there's like some coins that are hidden. Another arm scroll. There's random arm scrolls on so many of these maps that are just like, really?
To be fair, it's things like Leonardo joining at a rank where he literally can't use a steel bow, where it's kind of like, wow, I can kind of see why we have these arm scrolls, but like that doesn't make it less annoying.
Yeah, welcome to we introduced bronze weapons and locked every E rank to bronze weapons, so it's just like the standardization of weapons and the introduction of bronze is just so painful. Speaking of something else that's painful, welcome to One Survives. I will say this was a map that kept me guessing what was going to happen in the story when I first played the game blind, because you go into the base, and you only have Micaiah.
Yeah,
And you're like, what the heck is happening?
yeah, I saw that. Well, like
All of
when
the
that
soldiers are
happened,
going to a party, they're partying, whatever. Micaiah leaves. I'm like, are they all gonna get poisoned? What the heck is happening? And then,
yeah, when I saw that in my playthrough, I was just like, oh no. I was like, I can tell that this is going to be like
how
kind of
untrained
dicey.
was your Micaiah at this point?
I think she was like level 8 or 9 or something. But like, here's
Yeah.
the thing. Like, I like how I looked at the stats of her if she were higher level, and that wouldn't have helped her to survive the round of combat anyway.
Yeah, her speed and hit points are not great.
No.
Yeah,
Um.
what do you feel how do you feel about, so on one hand, you could see this as potentially Micaiah's last training arc before, force promotion and
Yeah.
opportunities there. It's a cool story set piece. On the other hand, how do you feel about super restricted Fog of War with just constant reinforcements from every angle who can all one round Micaiah, your lost condition?
Yeah. I personally would put this into interesting idea, poor execution, because like it's interesting to like if you could see where all the enemies are, it would be interesting, right? Because like you know where people are coming from, you know what tile like Makai can move to, you know what tiles the enemy can reach and tack to. You've got the Bird King there, and like you know that if like you really need him to, he just stands somewhere, and any enemies that are within this range are going to kill themselves on him.
I kind
Uh,
of feel like the other way around.
oh
Like,
really?
I think this is one of the maps where it's like, yeah, it's annoying, but Fog of War makes the map at least potentially interesting, because if you didn't have Fog of War, you would just be able to see exactly where to stuff Micaiah, exactly what corner is safe, and exactly how to get the Black Knight to optimally kill every soldier. And it just wouldn't be very interesting at all, in my opinion. Whereas at least this way, on a blind playthrough, if nothing else, you are
Mm.
constantly kind of guessing, kind of like, oh, is this safe, is this not? And that tension that the map builds is what it was going for, and I think that they managed to make the map emotionally feel tense up until the second time Micaiah dies to a unit out of nowhere. At which point it just becomes,
Becomes annoying.
literally, I'm just gonna stuff her in a corner and wait 20 turns with the Black Knight until I'm sure that every soldier is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's like maybe the difference in like our opinions is that like we both agree that it's really annoying when Micaiah keeps on dying randomly to stuff,
Yeah.
right? Um, I as part of like my review of Path of Radiance, I was like, I'm not a big story person, so like that stuff doesn't really hold much bearing for me.
Sure.
And like I don't mind Puzzle Emblem, so like I would not mind this if it were no Fog of War. I knew exactly where to move Micaiah. I knew exactly where she could stand in order to like get some experience for like this supposed training arc. Like that would not be an issue to me. This is much worse to me where there's like Fog of War because I'm like, wow, I just don't know where I can make you stand and you're safe.
Okay. And that's fair, because, I mean, we all know I'm the black sheep of the Fire Emblem fandom, apparently, for saying that I like Fog of War and the emotional, aspects that it can bring to a map. That's just me. That's just my opinion at that point. I do agree that it could still work without Fog of War. I think they would need to redesign the map a little bit more to provide maybe fewer guaranteed safe spaces for Micaiah and more, like, reason to actively use her outside of just, literally let the Black Knight do everything.
Yeah.
If they were to remove the Fog of War, because with the Fog of War, it's like, okay, I want to use the Black Knight, but I'm not sure how best to. Without, it's like, yeah, I know how best to use the Fog Knight, the Black Knight, but I want to make but, I feel like the map does need a little bit more for Micaiah to actively do.
Yeah, I think, like, for instance, like, you should have loads of uses of Fanny left. So, like, if, for instance, there were
Oh, yeah.
enemies that, like, could die in one hit to it from base, for instance, like, that means there's, like, actively something for her to do.
Yeah,
Whereas, like,
if you
all the other enemies, like, if she gets hit by them, she's just dying. Like, nothing is happening.
Yeah, you have Myrmidon's fighters and soldiers on this map. If there were Armor Knights on this map, that would be a different story, and I'd be like, hey, interesting.
Yeah.
at the same time, any map where you have the Black Knight is never going to be, like, a super challenging map if they allow him to, you know, to be used and move, because he can literally one-round the entire map.
Yeah.
Like, even up till, like, he would still be one-rounding things into Act 4 with what his stats are.
Oh yeah, he would be.
No question. Yeah, I'm gonna say interesting idea, poor execution, because I can't say what were they even thinking, because I do know what they were thinking.
Yeah, I can also see what they were thinking.
I can see they were trying so hard to make this map work and to make it interesting. I just think that it has some foundational issues.
Yes, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, the last hurrah for Act 1, which is kind of just a slog.
I just call it 1E. Yeah, it's just...
Like,
okay. The thing is, though, I don't mind it. Like, I don't mind it, but I don't like... I can't think of many things that, like, I like about it either.
It's very solidly meh.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can make this map, you know... There are interesting things on this map. You have constant ledges. I will give it one thing, is that you are encouraged to rush forward because of the thieves that spawn.
Yeah.
You rush forward, you need to get the thieves.
I like the thieves, because you're just kind of there like, wow, they're like way ahead of us, we need to like get going now.
And I think there's a second round of thieves, like from the left too?
I believe so, yeah.
So a couple turns later. The map definitely has stuff going for it. Here's the thing. It's like, in my mind, this is kind of one of the most, like, typical mid-game Fire Emblem maps. It's like, okay, we threw some enemies on a board, we have a couple chests, we're gonna spawn a couple thieves to get to the chests, you start here, the boss is over there, figure out how you're doing it, and then... Yeah. Reinforcements from behind, actually a lot of reinforcements from behind.
A lot of reinforcements from behind.
Which then encourages you to take the high ground for yourself if you have units that have 2 range, like if you have if you've been training Leonardo, or, you know, maybe you want to, you know, if you have units with effective 2 range, you can take the ledges for yourself and make some decent use of them.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think it's, like, fine. It's just fine.
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely a middle of the road map, but it's definitely below the rest, like most of the rest of Act 1.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, not to, you know, rush too much through, but we do have a lot of maps, and I promised that this wouldn't take 4 hours, so... well, good news is we are on to Act 2. Bad news is this the worst map in the game?
No, I can't. I don't think this is the worst map in the game.
Is this in competition for?
What
were they thinking?
I can kind of see vaguely what they were going for, like especially after 1E, where like the ledges demonstrate that if you transform Raphael, he can't like climb up ledges. Like here, like Leanne can clearly fly.
Yeah. What I was saying is like, yeah, what were they even thinking of like this next map? You know, 2P because.
There are definitely a lot of things where I'm like, why would they do that? Like, I'm just like, when I like saw Alicia's stats, I was like, oh, she has stats, and then they gave her a slim sword, and I was like, why? Not
just a slim sword. They give like the slim sword in Radiant Dawn, if I remember right, is the worst version of the slim sword ever.
2 might. It's 2 might.
Yeah,
it's real bad.
2 might. Like at the very least, you know, the slim sword in like GBA is 3.
Yeah, and that's also a lower numbers game as well.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, you have this tier 3 unit who ends up just being a tank that can't do DPS because they didn't give her a real weapon. Which, to be fair, she wouldn't be carrying Amity around on her leisure flight.
It's true.
It makes sense, but still.
Yeah, it's just... yeah, no.
And you have Marcia, who's pretty much a well-rounded unit. She can tank a few hits, she can deal some damage, but she's not really dealing enough damage to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, the most important contribution that she has on this map is that she recruits Har.
Yeah. Niluchi is actually your best combat unit up until Har shows up, but only for half the time, because the other half of the time he's completely worthless and a liability and will get, two-rounded.
Yeah.
He's at least
No, I
bulky
think
enough
no,
to
you're
not get
right. You're right.
one-rounded.
You're right. This is a pretty bad map. This is a bad map.
Yeah, and then there's... So they did one interesting thing, is that they tried to add a moving terrain. Clouds give 10 avoid. Do they give a defense, or is it just avoid? I forget.
I think it's just avoid, and then it also like hinders movement slightly.
Yeah, they give avoid. They hinder movement. I think it's like a half point of movement penalty. So it's not like a full 2 points, but like they do still slow you down if you're moving through a lot of them. And between every phase, they will shift one tile, I think, to the left.
Oh yeah, it's really annoying because it's like it means that like you're like, okay, so it's fine for you to stand here because they won't reach you on enemy phase, and then they can because the clouds move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the clouds move. It's just kind of an annoying, hey, let's try to keep Leanne safe. One interesting thing that does happen, though, that I think is cool, and it's kind of like the last time this has happened is like Thracia AI. If the enemy reaches Leanne, they will rescue her and try to carry her off the map, and you only lose if they leave the map.
Yeah, I think that was really cool. Like, I think that was cool.
Yeah, this is one of the few uses of a truly unique AI script, and so, at the very least, that's interesting. Not enough to put the map into interesting idea, but I think...
Yeah.
It's like, at best, it's interesting at poor execution. But
it has like a lot of vaguely interesting ideas, but they're all executed so poorly that I don't think I can...
It's like, I don't mind the clouds, I don't mind, I think the Leanne rescuing is cool, but only having 4 units and having no. This isn't, like, a great map, it's just kind of like a figure it out. I do think 2-1 is a really good map, though.
2-1 is... I don't know, I have, like, really mixed feelings on 2-1, because, like, I'm very clear, like, what they were going for, but I also don't... I don't like the fact that, like, the red units, like, sometimes they just don't do things that I'm expecting them to do. It's like, wait, why on earth did you move there? Why are you standing there and not attacking me? It's like... I find that really irritating, personally, because, like, if I don't know what they're doing, I'm like, well, there's no point.
The red unit script is a little bit odd because they mix a lot of different AI types in this map. You have a lot of units that... You have a couple units that don't move at all, and only attack if you're right next to them. I think you have some units that don't even attack, that like truly passive AI. You have the bandits that are on pillage AI, and you have the random wandering fighters that are aggressive, but don't attack Heather if she's a green unit, I want to say? I don't know. This map is weird. The more I talk about it, the more that this map is just kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird. No, I can't put it in pretty good or higher, personally.
Okay, yeah, the more I think about it, it's like... I think the map is cool because it showcases, okay, here's a couple tier 2 units, here's Nephany, here's Braum. They can take hits, they can deal damage, but you also, again, you only have 2 units, and it's kind of an exercise a little bit in futility of just like, okay, you're asking me to use all my resources, but I literally only have 1 weapon choice per unit.
It's like I have 2 units, they both have 1 weapon to start with.
It's like, if they gave Nephany a javelin in addition to her steel great lance, because Braum can get a hand axe from killing one of the fighters, I want to say.
Yes, I believe so. I think that there's, like, I believe that one of the villagers gives a javelin, but, like, that's, like, a good chunk of the way into the map already.
Yeah, it's this village all the way down here, so you have to jump down the cliff, come over, and get to the village, which is being blocked by another enemy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, it's weird. A lot of the Part 2 maps in general, I just don't... Like, even on the first playthrough, I didn't like them, because I was like, wow, I don't really get a choice about, like, anything that I do with these units. After, like, Part 1, where, like, it gradually does start to, like, open up in terms of what you can do with your units, right? So I don't really, like, it's something that comes up as well again, and I'll mention again when we get to the start of, like, Part 3. But I really don't like the way that, like, I like the idea of shifting armies in, like, theory, but in practice, it just kind of leads to, like, this weird moment where you keep on having that like introductory arc again and again and again, and it really just kills the pacing for me.
Yeah, the hard resets of player agency are definitely points of frustration.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was I say that as like literally someone doing a first playthrough, so like they must be really boring on repeat playthroughs.
yeah,
I'm
these
guessing.
these are definitely maps where it's like there are reasons why Fire Emblem doesn't do a lot of these preset deployment maps outside of, the intro maps because they have to. It's because once you play through them once, they become solved, and it's not even like, oh, this is theoretically solved with this team, like an LTC route or whatever. It's like, no, this
No,
map
it's
is
just all.
it's just solved because you're given a puzzle, it has one solution, you do the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess on that respect, it's pretty meh.
Yeah.
So this is at least interesting.
It's like vaguely interesting.
I'm just gonna leave it here for now while we talk about it, and then I might shift it to a different tier later.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just leave it down here. I don't know where's easier for you to think about it. So this map, you have Lucia, Nephany, Heather, uh, Lethe,
From
Mordecai, Leanne, Braum, and
Lelouch as well.
Nilucci. So you have all the Lagoos and the units from the previous map.
I think it is
And
a
Lucia.
very. I think it is a very good map at kind of like because you don't know where everything is. And like you can tell that like not all of your units that you have are like actually very tanky.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like it's quite. I feel like it does encourage you to like. It encourages you to use a Lagoo Stone. It encourages you to use an Olive Grass.
Yeah.
I like that aspect of it.
I like that the map, all the units that they give you, one, none of them are going to die in one hit. Like, even Leanne, unless she gets really unlucky, because she has such high luck and speed, is she's not going to get doubled. None of your units are going to get one shot, and every one of your units is better at different things.
Yeah.
Like, you have your fast, attacking units. You have your big, beefy tanking units. You have kind of your well-rounders. And then they also plant all the torches around to encourage you to light them up. I think you even find a torch pretty quickly.
I believe so. Yeah.
Like, one of the first enemies you see who's, like, within attack range of, like, within a turn has a torch.
Yeah.
You get the funny moment of, oh, haha, Nilucci's blind. He has 0 vision range.
Yeah.
I think the frustrating part about this is that you get reinforcements like behind you, and it's not just a couple. It's a lot.
There's a load of them. It's a lot of them. I don't really like mind the reinforcements.
Actually, I guess it's only one squad because it doesn't repeat. It's a Thunder Mage, a Halberdier, and a Soldier.
Oh, okay.
The Halberdier's pretty dangerous, though.
I guess it just feels like a lot because there's already like quite a few enemies like spread out across the entire map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a Lucia arrives in the top right. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Like, this is kind of one of those maps that like I don't hate it, but I also just don't. I don't like it. Like, it's true that like all your units do different things, but like I'm just not a big fan of it. Like, it's not even like the Fog of War aspect because like there will be a Fog of War map that comes up later that I do actually like in this game, but
okay,
like I don't know. It's just kind of a case of like this is very It's just like very obviously solved. I just don't. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah,
much myself.
The Fog of War is inoffensive at best here. It's not terrible, but it's not like doesn't really seem to have a ton of purpose outside of like narrative of like, oh, your characters don't know where they are. It's a dark tunnel. And then yeah, it's like none of your units are really strong enough to do stuff on their own outside of like, but they're also all strong enough to do a little bit on their own. It's weird. None of your units really have great unit feel, despite having those, we talked about, they're all good at different things, but they still are not good enough at those things to have great unit feel.
Yeah, like, it's kind of sad when, like, your best combat unit on that map may very well just be Lucia, because even though, like, she doesn't have very high, like, strength and therefore attack, like, she has the enhanced crit from Swordmaster, therefore, like, she might happen to kill something. It's like, wow, I'm so happy with that.
She's fast enough to double, and she has a silver sword, and she doesn't have to worry about a Laguz gauge depleting, so
Yeah,
by that metric, she is your kind of best all-around combat unit.
yeah. It's really not exciting.
Yeah. I think you do have, like, one potential chance to use her parity, like, at the end, because I think the boss is on a big, like, a defense tile or something? I forget.
I think so.
Yeah, so you're kind of encouraged to use her, parity skill, which is at least something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a very nothing map. Not helped by it being like, everyone's pre-deployed, etc., etc.
Well, speaking of which, we have another map that is all of those same things. At the very least, you get some preps beforehand.
Yeah,
So, here's a question that I have. All of your allies are yellow units. What did you tell them to do?
to be honest, I just told them to charge forward, because I was like, hey, I can use some meat shields.
Like, did you, like, target a point on the ground and just had them run?
I saw the dude with the horse slayer, like, in, like, the far distance ahead, and I was like, cool, I'm having one of you eat that, so I can bait him safely.
Because as a kid, when I very first played this map, I was so in bed with the idea that I don't want my experience to be wasted, and I didn't yet know that the yellow units gave all the experience they would earn as bonus experience. So I had all the yellow units hold position, and I cleared the entire map with the 6 units you get.
That's so awful. That's so awful.
Never again! like I said, this is, 13-year-old me playing through this for the first time. Just being like, yeah, no, I don't want to waste my experience. Meanwhile, none of these units I'm ever going to be using outside of their force deployed chapters, so it doesn't matter. If anything, I would want to get all that experience as bonus experience funny. Because the yellow units
because if anything, you could actually argue that you were wasting experience in the end.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, you have Joffrey, who is great and can, like, practically solo most of the map outside of, like, a couple dangerous enemies. And if he gets swarmed and gets unlucky and gets hit a lot, then he can go down. Kieran is very similar to Joffrey, just a little bit less good.
Yeah.
Astrid sucks, Makalov sucks, Marcia as flying utility, and then Danved has issues crossing the map because he's a halberdier. Yeah. Danved didn't bring a horse.
No, he did not.
Which for the record, does make him an important unit in a later map. Not in this one, though.
Yeah,
I'm debating put them into what they were even...
I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, this is, again, Act 2, and this is a lot of maps in Radiant Dawn. Radiant Dawn is really good at setting up, here's a map for a plot point, a point in the story. This is an impactful moment. This is a memorable map because of what it entails, what it is. This is not a good map for playing.
No, it's so
And Radiant Dawn, the worst maps in Radiant Dawn, for the most part, is that they embody a point in the plot, but kind of forget to be a playable map. And if you watched my Fire Emblem 2 map tier list, that's the same problem. That's what Gaiden does with its maps, is that all of its maps are places. It's different, but it's similar. It's like all the maps are places first and game board second. In this, it's like all of the maps are like story points first and game board second. And I think you really feel the fact that this is a game board second on this map.
You really feel it in part 2 because of all of these are the units you have now, and it's because you get basically a new group of people you're using every single part 2 map. It means that you keep on having this moment, and you're like, wow, this really is a set piece, huh? In every single conceivable way.
Yeah, it's like, on paper, on a single playthrough, I don't mind having some set piece maps, some puzzle maps, some like, hey, it's a new problem to solve, and I have new tools to solve it with. But on repeat playthroughs, it definitely does grind to a halt. Like, emotionally, my emotional investment in the map is very low.
Joffrey's charge is just also like really irritating with like that horse slayer dude and like the only person you have who can move there in like a timely manner is Marsha, who if she gets into range of that dude is probably also in range of one of the crossbows that will kill her if they hit her. So
Yeah, plus you have on the left here, from like turn 6 on, there's just reinforcements, and it's separated out such that you get a different squad every turn, but you still get squads in the same location. It's all cavaliers, it's just cavaliers with different weapons for like 6 straight turns, 2 or 3 at a time, and it's too much. There's again, what I said at the start, Tellius maps are great when they're small and personal and kind of give each of your units something specific to do. And they fall apart when it gets too big and there's too much happening. Tellius is not really designed to be a massive scale warfare game, not really designed to have a ton of units on the field. And this is a perfect example of why not.
Yeah.
But let's get to one of the bigger maps that generally people like, though there is some pushback for various reasons. Elincia's Gambit.
Yeah, so Elincia's Gambit, it was definitely the map that I enjoyed the most in part 2, but to be fair, we've already seen this, that's not hard. It does occur to me that, like, because of the nature of the way that, like, part 2 works, I think that, like, I enjoyed it a lot on my first playthrough, but I'm not sure how much I would like it on subsequent playthroughs.
It's definitely a map. First of all, if you haven't watched Bopper's video, go check it out. He does a great job of really piecing this map apart, analyzing it, and it was that video that really made me want to do more map analysis myself. So, great job, great map, great video. This is definitely probably... I don't know if it's the most memorable map from Radiant Dawn, but it's definitely like top 5 most memorable maps.
Oh, it's definitely one of the more memorable maps.
It is also one of the more, if you don't cheese it out, difficult maps in the game. Maybe not difficult, maybe difficult's not the right word.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, I think.
There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff to, like, send a small squad here to do this, send Har out here to do that. There's a lot of side objectives, things to get, things that are actually meaningful, stat boosters, items that are worth a decent amount of money, like the Reaper card, a lot of coins to gather.
Draco
Shield, Energy Drop, Silver Great Lance, Nullify, Scroll, Tomahawk. There's a lot of stuff to get. And a lot of side objectives to kind of look into. That said, you can also just send Har as a targeted drone strike to the boss and end the map relatively quickly, with the only caveat being if he gets crit by one of the Thunder Mages, he dies.
Yeah.
And
I can see this being in fun and unique, yeah. Like, for me, it's like somewhere between like fun and unique and solid. And that's because, like, I really enjoyed it, but because I didn't enjoy all the, like, maps leading up to it, I was kind of like, would I actually enjoy playing this again? I don't know.
This is one of the maps where it's like, I might leave it in fun and unique, depending on what else gets up here, but I think other maps would displace it down into solid, because what happens if you don't send Har and or Elincia down to quick clear the map? Is that you get a massive bottleneck right here.
Up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, especially down this right hallway, and on the stairs to the left, you're kind of encouraged to block it off with your own units, because there's a lot of reinforcements that come from there. So basically, you have a massive glut of units being blocked by 1 or 2 units here. You have a massive glut of units being blocked by your allied units, and then your own units over here on the right through all the barricades. And then it's kind of like you have this raised platform of all the enemy units that you want to charge in and get because they're the ones that have all the good stuff. but you have to like be really careful with like dancing your flyers in and out because there's a lot of dangerous stuff. There's
Crossbows.
crossbows, there's thunder mages, there's just high statted generals.
Yeah.
And so it's like, even when it does turn into just kind of a traffic jam on both sides, there is still interesting stuff for you to do because of your flyers and the way that flying and Leanne's Galdir work and all of that. So I'm going to say I can leave it up in Fun and Unique for now, with the caveat that it might get displaced.
I think you managed to convince me down into Solid. Like, when you were repeating, I was like, yeah, no, I don't think I would enjoy playing this a second time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think it's because of those traffic jams that it gets knocked down to Solid. It's at the top of Solid, to be honest. It is a very solid map, but again, like all the Part 2 maps, it's still a slog to get through on repeat playthroughs.
Yeah.
But we're out of Part 2 with that, and we are on to Part 3. How do you feel about the Greil Mercenaries?
I really did not enjoy most of the Greil Merc maps.
Interesting. And I guess we'll discuss why, but first of all, prologue.
So bad. Awful. Absolutely awful. Like, I think it's a perfect example of what you mentioned before. Like, it's a set piece. But, like, it's literally a map that you don't even have to play. And, like, to me, that actually makes it worse than, like, I think that actually makes it the worst map of all the maps that we've rated so far to me. Because, like, if I can just stand there and do nothing, I hate it.
I'm gonna at least give it interesting idea, poor execution, because the concept of it is somewhat interesting to me. Though maybe I might put it down to what were they thinking, because now that I think about it, this is like the perfect example of why you shouldn't give green units too much control.
No, it's just...
Because here's what happens on the map for the uninitiated, is you have the Greil Mercenaries over here, you have Skrimir, Ranulf, and a ton of cats over here, and your goal is to get Skrimir to seize a point up here. And there is a wall of forests between you, so you have to go up your own path, cross over to the top here, and try to kill the boss and whatnot before Skrimir gets there, because they have some... I think they have like some interesting droppables or something, or at the very least it's like a lot of experience.
I think it's just experience, really.
You have some ballistas, which are positioned to give Shannon and Rolf some opportunities to like snipe down mages and whatnot. In theory, it's a cool set piece of like, hey, you're a mercenary like special tactics squad. Here's what you're supposed to be doing, and you're doing the special tactics. In theory, in practice, it just kind of becomes, okay, this Fog of War. This is definitely one of the more annoying Fog of War maps in the series, in my mind, just because there's so many opportunities for you to move forward. Oh, wait, nope, I got blocked. Relying on green units is never fun, especially relying on green Laguz, who they untransform and don't realize they're untransformed, and so they stand in the way and block their own troops from actually attacking.
Yeah, it's awful. It's so bad.
Yeah, it's like... Yeah, I can't even put it in, interesting idea, poor execution, because, as I've said before on this channel, and I don't remember if I've actually made the video, but I've wanted to, of massive reliance on green units is almost never a good thing. It's never a good thing, and it's almost always a horrible thing.
Yeah,
and this is a perfect example of what I've seen a lot of early to mid fan games, ROM hacks do, is that they want to have these big army moments, and they'll put in a lot of green units. And what ends up happening is that it just turns the map into a heap of randomness the player has no control over, because the green units can sometimes, kill a lot of units and win the map, and sometimes they just get rolled.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable, because you're not playing Fire Emblem, you're watching Fire Emblem be played by a person who's bad at Fire Emblem.
Yeah, it's really painful. It's really painful.
Speaking of painful...
I hate this map as well.
Your short definitely showed some pain points of like, okay, you have a route map with stationary enemies who will not come out to attack you, who are hiding in corners that you would never, like, you have no reason to go to outside of, oh, hey, there's been hidden items. I wonder if there's hidden items over here. And then you run into it and it's like, blink, oh, an enemy.
Yeah, especially, like, because, like, it'd be one thing if, like, there weren't reinforcements on this map, but there are, which means that, like, it's not even the case that, like, you could have your army, like, move out and have at one point sighted the entire map. No, you need to make sure that people, like, are actually able to fight the reinforcements that come out from, like, the top left is fine, it happens, like, really early on, but then you've got, like, the ones that happen later on from, like, right
Bottom
behind
left,
you,
yeah.
the left. It's just like, come on, what are you doing?
The reinforcements and route maps are definitely always frustrating. The torches are positioned in such a way so at least you're seeing most of the reinforcements, if I remember right.
Yeah, but it's still,
But they
like,
might be,
still,
like, just outside the
edge.
edges.
It's still at the point in the game where, like, they won't let you buy anything from the shop, so, like, it's fundamentally solved, which is really irritating, and it also just means that, like, a lot of times you're just kind of, like, standing there, because you're like, I don't know where we need to go.
Yeah.
I don't know, I hate it. I hate it
You
very
have,
bad.
basically, you're forced to move around this map in a reverse clockwise order, but you do have a very slim hedges here that you can walk around the fence, but as soon as you try to, that whole mess of thicket will be filled up by enemy generals. And so what I often do is I just have like Shannon and Gatry over here just slowly chipping away while the rest of my army moves around and clears out the map. Something that, again, is very interesting, but not good, is that if you have any of the brothers visit house number 2 down here, you will get a unique... You'll get a unique visit conversation, and you will unlock a unique
A base conversation?
base conversation on the next map, but you will not receive a blue gem. The Seraph number 1, but you will not receive a blue gem. And at this point in the game, this is not Path of Radiance, this is Radiant Dawn. Money matters. Money matters, at least up until the very end of the game. Money matters. And because you have constant, you know, temptations from the base shop, Amy's Bargains, of, hey, you want to buy this? You need this money. You want to buy this stat booster? You want to buy this unique weapon? You want to buy this skill scroll? You need the money right now.
Yeah.
And missing out on 5,000 gold is like, I'm sorry, but that's not worth a character development moment that doesn't end up paying off later. To me.
No. I agree with that.
I think it's really cool.
If it were,
I think it would be better if you got the... I think it would be better...
In addition, it would be cool, but it's not, so it's really annoying.
Yeah, sorry, I was over-talking you. I think it would be better if you got the blue gem in that base conversation afterwards.
Yeah,
but you don't.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah, I'm willing to add this also to what were they even thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hello, welcome back. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's get back into it. Chapter 3-2 is where we're at, and this is... We're out of the fog of war for part 3 for now.
Yep. For now.
For now. We get the mix of units from Acts 1 and 2. We have Ilyana from Act 1, and then we have like half of Act 2's squad, Brahm, Nephany, Heather, and Har, as well as Leth and Mordecai. Or do they not join yet? I forget.
I don't remember.
I think Leth and Mordecai join as well, but they might not be available yet. Either way, we get Har, and we get any items that you would have shipped from Act 1 on Ilyana, for people that do that. This map is kind of another nothing map, to be honest.
Yeah, I almost feel like... Because here's the thing, right? Like, a lot of the maps, like, the maps that are in Meh are, like, kind of, like, mostly inoffensive. But in this case, like, this is, like, a really huge map. I don't think has really any interesting qualities to it. Like the opener of, like, 162. So I'd almost actually put it below the interesting idea port execution ones in like a separate tier, which is like literally like a nothing tier.
Yeah,
Like
that's...
these have interesting things, right? This one does not. It's just there.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing of like how I put this map, is that it implies that that at least having something interesting going for it is worse than being a nothing map, which is
I mean,
probably
I
the
think that like,
reverse of what it should be.
I guess I don't know. Maybe it's more like the maps are kind of like all right, but then like below interesting idea port execution there has to be like an additional tier, which is like this is just nothing. It's literally
I can do
nothing.
that. I can do that. We can do it live. Kind of a waste of a map, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay adding some extra tiers in here because yeah, I don't really have much interesting to say about it.
Yeah, it's just there.
You have a bolting sage, I think.
Yeah.
The
There's like a bolting
boss
stage off to like off to around like the right, around like the middle-ish
the
area.
boss is
It's
dangerous. Har can go whichever direction. Normally he'll go to the right for me over the trees because no one else can do that. Take on this whole upper right quadrant while the rest of my army slowly drags out the rest. Eh.
yeah, it's
By the way, I'm
a
getting a
map.
little bit of my own voice through your end, but I guess only when like your mic is on, so...
Oh, are you? Okay, wait. That shouldn't be happening because I do have headphones on, which is playing my sound out through.
Yeah. It's only happening like when I'm talking and you're about to start talking, and so like when the mic starts picking up, but...
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just... In case anyone mentions it on YouTube, I noticed it as well, and we're trying to get, trying to resolve it, but no promises, but... It should be fine.
Cool.
Alrighty, we good?
Yep.
Now I'm debating if any of these are kind of a waste of a map. And I don't really think they are.
I don't really think they are either. Like, all the other maps kind of like have something vaguely interesting to them, right?
Or at worst, they're like a pretty generic Fire Emblem map.
Yeah.
The ones above them. And the ones where what were they even thinking are like, no, this is actively unfun to play.
Yeah.
Okay. 3-3. This one is the horses map.
Yeah. I think it's definitely the most interesting of the part 3 maps so far, I think.
Yeah, I definitely like... I like the idea of it. Maybe I don't like actually playing it, but I like the idea of it. Because it's a map where it uses the fact... It uses Tellius' scale to its advantage of like, hey, you're a small group, go in there and do some small group stuff. You have the only, the technically 4th or 5th, one of the only dark magic users in all of Tellius is here. You have a small number of units, but at key points that are like going to block stuff off, choke stuff off. So Har is very important to go around and do stuff. All you have to do on this map is burn supplies. You don't have to kill the boss. You don't have to visit all the huts. But you can get some pretty good stuff if you do. Especially if you hunt down the senators.
Yes.
They have white gems, and I think it's a hidden item on this map is that there's a master seal. Or is that on...
I have no idea, but like...
It says item
I don't
4 is a master seal here. Master crown, sorry.
I think this map is like... To me, it's somewhere between like pretty good and only okay, because like I like a lot of the ideas. Like I think the Burning Spires idea is cool, and I like that there is a time limit, but I just don't find it to be a very interesting map, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair, that's fair. It's one of those maps that's like, I recognize it and I think about it more because it's a set piece, whereas when I'm actually playing it, it's like, we're still in that phase of the maps are kind of playing themselves. Like, you have more units, you have access to the base, you have battle preps, you have opportunities to really make your team start making your team your own, but you still are forced into, well, you really only have 1 or 2 units that are good at doing these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is necessarily a problem. I think that having, like, specific opportunities for specific units is good. I am not personally a fan of, like, well, you could make your whole army flyers, and then you could all do this stuff, and then it doesn't matter who you use. I'm not a fan of that. But I do think there is another side to that coin of Radiant Dawn Greil Mercs just kind of becomes the Har and crew show.
Yeah, it does. I would agree with that.
That's more of an issue because they made the flyer also be the tankiest and also be the most damaging.
Yeah, it was
And the
certainly
best
a
weapon
unit
ranks.
balancing. It was certainly a unit balancing choice that was made.
Yes, and then you get a Master Crown here, so it's like, well, if Har wasn't performing well enough, just make him a Dragon Master, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's not the map. The map itself is pretty good, I'd say, but it's one of those that really the concept of it is doing a lot of hard carrying, but they executed it well enough to not be, you know, poor execution.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Ooh, let's get into mountain maps. Ranulf and Ike have to arrive, and you also get, I think this is the first map where you have Kiza and Lyre available to use, if
Yeah,
you
I
would ever
believe so.
want to.
Yeah, I looked at them and I was like, wow, these would certainly be stats.
They are
and I'm
certainly
not interested.
some of the units of all time.
Yeah.
They hold... they are 2 of, like, up to 5 units that are in contention for the worst units in all of Radiant Dawn. Mostly because they are units that never... They're never force deployed, and you never have an opportunity to really make them shine unless you go out of your way for them.
Yeah.
It's like, Kiza has Quick Claw,
yeah.
that's it.
This map is like...
But anyway, the map.
I don't know. I don't... Mostly, I just remember being like, wow, so my Cavaliers really can't do anything, and Har is even better here than he already was. So I just was
Yeah.
like, this is really boring.
Yeah,
I was like, this is really boring.
Terrain is definitely... I will say this. If no one else did, the map makers definitely saw how powerful Cavaliers were in Path of Radiance and said, okay, we need some incentive to not just have, you know, the Crimean Royal Knights plus Ike again.
I mean, they did succeed in that, but unfortunately they just ended up making flyers even more dominant than they were in Path of Radiance somehow.
They exceeded in a in the wrong way, because, like, I like terrain. I like the use of terrain overall in Radiant Dawn. I think it has a lot of interesting merits to it. But I think that some of the specific maps, and this one is definitely a prime example, do not really serve it well.
Yeah.
I'm debating whether it's poor
I don't know.
execution
I
or
don't-
whether
I don't
it's
think
what
it's-
were they thinking.
I don't think it goes into like poor execution because like it's just like it's just like the epitome of like them doing all the things they could to Cavaliers, and I'm just kind of like, I don't really understand why you thought that like this would.
Yeah, because like you see this line right in the middle of the map. This is the no Cavaliers beyond this point, no horses beyond this point. And if this was, I don't know, Thracia or even Fire Emblem 3, you could dismount. But because dismount isn't an option, this is just yeah, 3 of your best, or is it just 2? I think it's just Oscar and Titania.
Oscar and Titania.
Oscar and Titania can't do much here. But they've been doing so much on other maps that it's like they're probably some of your better units, so you still want to bring them, but they're very hamstrung here. Not to mention the map is kind of littered with some random green unit Lagoos, which just kind of is a fact of Part 3. It's neither here nor there. They're not really offensive, but they can also block your way and get into uncomfortable positions, and worst of all, I think, bring the enemies into weird, uncomfortable positions on the ledges and whatnot.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. I don't really know what they were thinking.
Yeah, I'm seeing more of what you mean, and now that you say it out loud, now that we go through the maps one by one, of like, yeah, no, we have the Greil Mercs. I like these units. I don't like these maps. I think that's the coin with Radiant Dawn, is like the Dawn Brigade maps. You have some pretty good maps, but you don't really have good units to really make the most of them. And the Greil Mercs, you have some really good units, but you don't have any fun maps to actually use them in. The maps
Yeah,
are
I mean,
actively
it's
working against
interesting
you.
because like I quite like obviously like I'm here, for
Hmm.
instance, but like even if I was just doing this on my own, like I would like I did this for part one for all the parts, and I was like, wow, I really enjoyed the Dawn Brigade maps,
Hmm.
and then I was like, wow, I really didn't enjoy the Grail Merc maps,
Which
and
is,
like I think that part of it is like the unit quality getting involved. Like I don't find like I know that a complaint that some people have about the Dawn Brigade maps is that you need like 2 or 3 units to somehow just like sometimes KO like an enemy. But like that's not something that I really mind. Like I don't mind the enemy units being stronger than mine. So like
yeah.
I find that interesting. Whereas like with the Grail
Hmm.
Merc, like I kind of feel a bit like, well, it's not interesting to get you to team up on someone, and also these maps aren't good, so I don't care.
Yeah, that's another point. Because that's why it's like, when I came back around to it, why I really started enjoying like DS Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and New Mystery, is because on those higher difficulties, you are forced to use your whole army just to take down, a couple units. But it's interesting, and they make it interesting because you're using your army for all the little simple things they can do. And the Dawn Brigade has that same sort of vibe. It's like, yeah, Edward and Leonardo are not great units, but you find uses for them. And they're not just like, hey, distract a unit over here. They're like, no, add some meaningful chip damage so I can push through the rest of this group and get to the next one.
Or even like, I mean, like we'll come on to this later, but like even like, oh, it's really like I really need someone to stand on this ledge, and you're
Hmm.
here, so please stand on this ledge.
Yeah.
Whereas like with the Grail Mercs, for instance, like Kaiser and Lyre, there's no reason to ever
Hmm.
field them.
Yeah, and it's because it's like, okay, you have useless units that join in an army of really solid units overall, but then just the maps don't give them a time to shine, which is another reason why Part 3 is just the Har Show, because the maps just kind of keep incentivizing you to, hey, use flyers, aka use the one flyer you have, which is Har.
Yeah, it's one of those things of like, I think that like the Grail Mercs part doesn't do a very good job of introducing most units other than Har, because like
Hmm.
for instance with the Dawn Brigade, you have 1-5 where Bolug joins and he's great, like he's so good, and like you have the map where like Leonardo joins, and even though like historically people are not going to be overjoyed to have a unit that's only 2 range, in the context of the prologue, that's an extra action, which is
Hmm.
like which is a unit showcase of a sort, right? Where
Yeah.
you just don't have that same moment with the Grail Marks.
No, you don't. Because you get so many units at the start, which is like, okay, cool, we have options. But then those options immediately get replaced by the right answer. Speaking of answers and bad maps, so this is kind of memed as one of the maps of all time. This is one of the first defend maps that people really were like, yeah, you can put, I think it was base level Braum, have him rescue Ike and stand on the point, and you can't lose.
Wow, that's
I think it was.
I would believe it,
I
yes.
will say, they try on this map. This is a defend map where the enemy tries to be threatening, and they put a couple interesting things on the map. I think there's an energy drop, and I think there might be some
I know there's something that you can steal from the
hidden
boss.
items. Yeah, I think it's either the energy drop or something else that you can steal. No, it is the energy drop you can steal from the boss. Um, but it is one of those maps where it's like, okay, if you play it the way they want you to play it, you have 2 ballistas, so you have, Rolf and Shannon. You have Rayson, who can fly around and give some more actions. You have ledges on this side that you want to cover, ledges up front here. One ramp, which the enemy has a lot of Cavaliers who are all going to be Kanto hitting whoever's guarding that ramp. My first experience losing a unit to enemy Super Kanto that I recall vividly was here. I think I had just promoted my Oscar to Silver Knight, and then he took an entire Cavalier squad, an entire Paladin squad, and just could not dodge to save his life, literally, and died.
That's sad. That's really sad.
So sad. But yeah, it's one of those maps where it's like, okay, they set it up, there's some good defend points, they want you to defend this map, it is clearly a defend map, the enemy is aggressive enough. There's incentive to push out to try to get mostly just the energy drop, the rest of it is just like coins and vulneraries. But
Yeah, I think it's a waste of a map. I think like there's like some vaguely interesting thing. Like you can tell like they were trying to do something interesting, right? Like you can see that they want you to use the ballista, but like there's not really any flies around, so you don't need to.
Yeah, it's
and
just
like
any extra chip damage.
and you can see that like you can block off ledges, but this isn't an army that needs to block off ledges to get things done. So it just makes it significant. Like we're gonna come off to it later, obviously, but it just makes it significantly worse than a later map in this part. To me, at least.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like, hey, here's your introduction to defend maps, almost. Which would have worked if you were like for instance, this same sort of map design is used in like the 5th chapter of Hector mode in FE7, where it's like Hector,
right,
defending the map, and it's like, hey, you want to lure out the boss and get the Draco shield from him, and then there's 2 useless treasure chests, and that's about it. Meanwhile, it's kind of like that, except this is like 2/3 of the way through the game.
Yeah, so it's even worse for the pacing.
Yeah. 3-6. Welcome back to the Dawn Brigade. Welcome to... Is this the map that you were saying that Fog of War actually kind of serves a purpose?
Yes, I really like this map. Like, I really, really like this map. Like,
is it go and fun and unique like this map?
I think it actually could, for me at least. Like, the Fog of War is there, but firstly, you can buy things like Torch to like light up things, and like you have a guaranteed staffer because Micaiah is promoted, right? Like you can see, like you can already vaguely see like where all the important enemies are. You can order the yellow units to go to important locations to like buy you a couple of extra turns in like a certain area until the Black Knight arrives. In which case, like you still need like the vast majority of your Dawn Brigade units to hold like one of the 2 sides that enemies can come from. So I find it quite interesting. So I quite enjoy it a lot. I found it really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting because this also, it plays like a defend map just because the enemies are so much stronger than you, but it's not. It's a kill 46 enemies map.
Yeah.
Technically not route because, there are more than that enemies.
There's so many more of them.
but it's kill as many as you can, which turns out to be 46 or 36 on easy, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot.
All of your units, they're not good, but they do get a lot of strong personal weapons, at least the main Dawn Brigade do. You have some resources to pass around. You have the ally units, which are not useless.
Yeah, they're not useless.
They're not great, but they're not useless, and one of them is a bishop with a physics staff, I want to say, so
yeah,
that's some potential healing there, and luckily ally phase is after your phase, but good luck guaranteeing that the bishop's going to heal who you want him to heal.
Yeah, but at the very least, like you have Micaiah at least as a staffer. You probably have Laura alive because if she was anywhere near danger, she was definitely dead. So I think everyone would probably keep her pretty far away from danger.
Yeah.
Again, so there's a lot of stuff you can do.
It's another map that the Dawn Brigade has where every unit you have plays a part. Like, even Fiona, who's probably untrained at this point, can still rescue people around and help move them around your starting island, even if she can't really go into the swamp.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's a really good map. Like that, like it really like confronts you with the fact that wow, my units can't really do much on their own. But I think it does that in an interesting way. Like you're like, wow, people basically get 2-shot by tigers here, and like they're probably not going to dodge the tiger hit either.
No.
But like
And there's
you know,
no,
you can
like,
get
great
more
terrain to stand in either. There's, like, you can use some of the branches to limit the numbers of tigers you're fighting, but you can't, like, get good defense bonuses.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it works like really well. Like there's like a lot of things you have to manage in like the 6 turns before the Black Knight shows up, and then even when the Black Knight shows up, like with the units you have deployed at that point, it's not entirely free if you want them all to survive. You still have to actually plan out your moves.
Yeah, and it's also not a defend map, so once you clear out the enemies that are immediately in your vicinity, you're still incentivized to push out into the swamp, even though that is very dangerous.
Yeah, it's
There's
very
also a
dangerous.
brave bow that you can find, like
Yes,
like
there
it's
is.
on your island.
Yeah, it's on the island,
Yeah, Soth
and
has a
like it's
pretty good
pretty hard.
chance of finding it.
It's pretty hard as well to like guess it within like the first like 6 turns, or like really it's pretty hard to find a turn where like Soph can like stand on that tile at any point because he's
Yeah.
probably still one of your tankier units. So you have to find someone who can like stand there, who can like stand in the position that you make him stand in for a turn while he like surges around.
But it's also a really interesting item to give you because unless you like trained and promoted Leonardo, one, he's not going to be at a rank to use it, and
yeah,
two,
no.
he gets the Lugasnod, so that's probably going to be your better weapon, especially if you have like if you gave him Beast Foe and he's your Beast Foe sniper, the Lugasnod, or even better, a bowgun or
I didn't use
crossbow,
a crossbow, yeah.
because it's the full weapon might get tripled there.
Yep.
The crossbow immediately, like, 70 damage almost.
Yeah, no, it was great. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah. So, surprisingly, one of the most fun and interesting maps in the game, which, going into it, I expected to put this map lower down, but the more we talk about it, the more excited I get to play it.
I know, right? Like I'm like talking about it, I'm like, oh my god, I had such a fun time playing this map. But
This
like I
is...
actually mean it.
It's definitely... This is the reverse that a lot of Part 2 maps give you. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is a lot of Part 2 maps are fun or interesting to play somewhat the first time, but then the more you play them, the more of a slog they become because the more solved they are. This map, it's a slog and it's painful to play the first time, especially because you're coming off of the high of having an army of good units. Now you have no good units, because Soth, he's not keeping up. Jill, even if you dumped into her, she's not really keeping up. You don't have Toronio anymore.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, so that's that immediate downturn of emotions that a lot of people are like, why am I playing with the Dawn Brigade again? But then the more you play the game and the more you come back to it, it's like, no, it's these hard, brutal Dawn Brigade maps that are exciting.
Yeah, like when like I was like, oh my god, I can put Beast Foe on Leonardo and like he can one-shot this enemy. I was like, wow, I did not expect that I'd feel this happy about being able to like one-hit KO an enemy.
Yeah, definitely. And then you get to another flip-flop map. You get the Greil Mercs against Daein, against the Dawn Brigade. And you have...
really boring. Really boring.
This map is somewhat interesting if you're trying to go for counter recruitments. Because you have to figure out how to get those units to get those recruitments. Also, the viable units for counter recruitment change if you have inherited data. If I remember right, because I
believe so. That's what I've heard. But I didn't play with Transstars.
I think it's like Zahark. You can counter recruit with more units. And maybe there's someone else that you can as well.
Maybe.
Okay, so yeah, Zahark, Lethian Mordecai, and you can recruit him with Braum or Ilyana if you have imported supports from FE9. So if they're an A support from FE9 and you imported that A support, then they can recruit them. Otherwise, it's just Lethian Mordecai.
I mean, I guess I can see how it could be interesting if you're trying to cross-recruit, but I don't really... I don't know, I don't think that would be a particularly like beneficial thing to do.
I'm still going to put this map at the very least in only okay, because I don't think it's a waste of a map as much as these other two.
It's definitely not as much of a waste of a map as those other two, I will agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's a fantastic map, but it's definitely It's definitely a passable map.
Yeah, I'd
It
say
doesn't
so. And
excite me, but I don't hate it.
I do think like you can end up with like some interesting moments, like if you're trying to go for a certain clear data moment.
Oh, yeah, the Ike has to fight the Black Knight and survive, plus Soren
Yeah.
has to do something, I want to say.
Or it has to attack Micaiah.
Soren has to attack Micaiah, Ike has to fight
Yep.
the Black Knight and survive, and you can also make the game a lot harder for yourself, but at the same time, here's the interesting thing about this map, and this is basically and this is why I say that the reverse recruitments are, or like the army swap is interesting, or makes the map interesting, is because the army swap really determines not this map, but how the future maps feel. Because
Yeah.
if you army swap Zahark or Jill, you can't army swap Meg. I thought you could. Looks like you can't. Even if her dad talks to her, she won't switch over. But if you army swap Jill or Zahark, they have more opportunities to get more resources, more experience, and become better units for endgame if you want to use them for endgame.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you make the rest of the Dawn Brigade maps of Part 3 harder, because there's no way to get them back, there's no, like, replacements for them. You are just stuck without potentially 2 of your stronger units.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, and it is interesting in like I guess it is interesting in that sense, but I kind of think that like it's
That's
pretty
not really
open
on the
shut
map,
to them.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but it's not the map is interesting. It's your planned playthrough might make the map more interesting or other maps more interesting. But the map itself isn't doing that for you.
But the map itself is where it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the map where it happens, how do you like fire maps? How do you like the volcano?
I played this map first in Engage with the DLC, Soren's Parallel, and I don't understand like what about this map means that like I don't understand. I don't understand why.
Yeah, the
this
other
is
paralogs in
on.
Engage, like, I will say the DLC paralogs in Engage, from what I've seen, I have not played them, don't really have the same, like, connection to the characters as the main maps did.
I would say that Hector's and Crom and Robin's have like that similar kind of tie, but the rest of them are like, well, okay. Tiki's also has that kind of spirit, like vaguely enough. But
Okay,
like,
yeah, Tiki does. Some of them do, but like
Miller and
it's
Soren
more
are the real
shaky.
misses here.
Granted,
Yeah.
Lynn's was a little more shaky, but even so, it still
It at least
kind of
works
worked.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I found this map really boring because it's route and also like there's all these tiles that like can just kill, like it can just like deal so much damage to people, like just like kill people.
Yeah, so the way that this map works is that if you stop any unit in any of the red tiles, they will take 10 damage at the start of that unit's phase. Next phase. So, like, if an enemy stops in the red tile, they'll take 10 damage at the start of enemy phase. If you stop on a red tile, you'll take 10 damage at the start of player phase. And so it's flat damage, it's just 10. But 10 flat damage can be a lot.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. It just takes a really, like, I was playing with map animations off, so like rounds of combat would happen really quickly. This, like, it just took them so long to take damage, and I just felt like I was just watching so many red units die to, like, not even me, and I was like, what on earth is happening? I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, the enemy AI, like, it's set up in the story, but the enemy AI doesn't know how to survive lava tiles. And they walk headfirst into all of them.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I would say that this was like an interesting idea, because like I don't know how like this concept would be interesting.
It's just another kind of a waste.
Yeah.
This is sad. I feel so sad for these Act 3 maps.
I know. I'm like destroying them.
It's like you're destroying them. You're making good points where it's just like, yeah, no, this map kind of sucks. It's like I had fun playing these maps, but that's mostly because I had fun playing with these units, and because the Greil Mercenaries I'll put it this way. Radiant Dawn, at this point, Radiant Dawn Act 3, feels like two different games. You have the
Yes.
Greil Mercenaries game where you're playing the mini-games of trying to optimize your units and level them up and prepare them for endgame. And then you have the Dawn Brigades maps where it's just like, I'm trying to play to the map and just get through this freaking map.
Yeah, Dawn Brigade is just trying their best.
But that provides such a different texture to the game, so much so that it feels like two completely different games.
Yeah, I almost feel like the fact that like it feels like two such different games, like almost made. I feel like it almost made me like dislike quite a lot like the Part 3 maps more with the Greil Mercs, because I was kind of like, wow, I get to have this like one really great map with the Dawn Brigade, and now we're back to this.
Yeah, which is interesting you say that, because like from a unit design, that's the exact opposite of how people feel going back to the Dawn Brigade. It's like, I had these great units, and then I go back to this.
Yeah. I can definitely like see the complaints people have in terms of like the unit thing, but in terms of like the way that the maps feel,
But
it's
maybe
definitely easier
here's...
to do the Greil Merc maps. But yeah,
Are we discovering a secret about Fire Emblem? Are we discovering a secret that bad units make better maps? I'm
I
gonna
think
have
bad
to...
units. I think bad units, like when you're forced to use bad units, it makes the experience more interesting potentially.
I'm gonna have to cycle back around to this for a potential scripted video maybe later on, but this is interesting. There's something here to this, because
There's definitely something here.
I mean, this is also why it's connected to like why the Kaga sagas feel the way they do. But granted, the Kaga sagas go ham on map design, so
They do.
yeah, we're gonna talk about
So
that later.
it seems
but-
like there's a lot of. Seems like there's a lot of like strong landings and a lot of strong misses.
Oh yeah, no, it is you love it or you hate it type thing with that. Speaking of love or hate, Crimean Royal Knights have one more map that they get to, you get to play as them, and this is the one where Devdan has arguably a role to play because he can go up and down cliffs.
Yep.
I don't really know what the purpose of this map is. This is like...
Yeah, I also have no idea what they were thinking. I have no idea. Like, I don't know. Like, the gimmick of like, oh, the houses are burning. Let's put the houses out is interesting. And I was like, afterwards, I told Danny, a mutual friend of ours, like, oh, the gimmick was really interesting. And she was like, did you know that if you just like stop a house from getting set on fire, you don't get bonus experience for putting it out? And I was like, sorry, what?
Wait, you get bonus experience for putting out the house, but not bonus experience for the house never getting lit on fire in the first place?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that makes me want to put this into interesting idea, poor execution. But I'm also like...
No, I think it's a really bad. I think it's a like. To be honest with me, that almost made it go down to like, what were they even thinking? Because like it means that like not only is it like a huge tonal shift between like you've gone earlier from like being with the Greil Mercs to being very briefly with the Dawn Brigade to being back briefly with the Greil Mercs to now being on like this really weird map. I just don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah. So in isolation, I feel like in isolation, I would say this map is like only okay or is pretty good. Maybe interesting idea, poor execution. I think in isolation, if this was like just a one-off map and like you didn't have the whole army switching or anything, it would be like here. But I think because you have the army switching, it just makes this whole army feel even more pointless.
I agree.
And so it does feel like kind of a waste of like, okay, you're trying to... I will say, plot-wise, again, I like it as like, hey... It's not doing the Fire Emblem 4 thing of telling us what's happening. It's having us actually go there and play a map and experience what's happening. And so I like that overall for the game. But I do think that map-wise, if you're just going map to map to map and not care... And, like, if the story framing didn't exist, it would definitely feel like, what the heck... Like, why is this even here?
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on a lot of the Crimean army maps as a whole, is I like the fact that they're there from a story perspective.
Yeah.
Like, I personally feel like in Path of Radiance, Alincia didn't really get like enough Showtime compared to Ike, for instance. So I do like her as a character.
Yeah.
So I do find this part interesting. But then, like, especially when this map happens in part 3, you've already clearly identified how different the Greil Mercs and the Dawn Brigade feel from each other, and there's just not really room for like this weird third army that doesn't really feel like either of them.
Yeah. I will definitely say that this discussion and whatnot has really brought around... Act 2 is very important for the feel of Radiant Dawn as a whole. And this
Yes.
map is like Act 2 Part 2. Because Crimea is a very, very weak, unstable country. It doesn't have its heroes anymore. It has, like, you know, mercenaries and a couple, you know, important knights, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you feel that. Act 2 is very, very good for the emotional feel of the story. This is like the whole, like, Ludo narrative connection, whatever buzzword people used to use for this. It fits the game very, very well. That said, as a playable map, it does not get me actually excited to play the map compared to the other maps. And so it's in that weird narrative space, you know?
Yeah, 'cause, like, it's weird because, like, you kind of like it because it kind of has to be there for the story, but you also kind of dislike it because you know that if it weren't for the story, you wouldn't be playing this map.
Yeah, it's like, this map makes Radiant Dawn a much better game, but also this map could be taken out and gameplay-wise nothing would be lost.
Yeah.
It's that weird space of Radiant Dawn did so many things for the narrative, and this just kind of is the prime example of that.
Yeah.
Speaking of a map for the narrative, you have Elincia in the middle of everyone. Green units up top, you at bottom, lot of red units on the right. And this is like... I think one of the most interesting things that people have highlighted is that this is, like, one of the only 2 hammers you can get in the game.
Yep.
And so people try real hard to get a disarm and then to level up Heather's strength enough to steal the hammer. Which kind of, sadly, is one of the most interesting things about this map.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think I agree with it. It's an interesting idea, but poor execution because, like, it's such a huge map.
Mm-hmm. The green
And, like,
units are very
all
strong.
their own.
Sorry.
And the green units, the green units are very strong. They're all just kind of like, Alincia is probably fine, but, like, I don't know. It's just really, it's just a map that you have to play, and like it's not a waste because, like, it does, like, I think that probably the previous map you could cut out and the story would not be affected much. This one you have to keep because otherwise the story doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. This is one of the maps where it's like, okay, the green units are all pretty strong, but there's still an element of risk there because if one of the named characters dies, I forget if they just retreat or if they actually die.
They just retreat.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
think they die.
I know that the green unit healing AI is such that they will steal all the vulneraries and elixirs from your units and use them.
Yeah, they will.
So that's
They will
fun. But yeah, the green units are bulky enough that they're not really going to die, but at the same time, they need your help to really, like, punch through and deal the finishing blow to the enemy army.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is just so big, and there's so much that's just, like, it's just a lot of units. This is like Clash 2, almost.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as Clash, it's not as painful as Clash, because it's, like, half the size of Clash. But it's... I'm looking at this map, there is no terrain outside of, like, a couple trees that block your movement.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no heal hedges, no thickets, nothing. It's just the trees and, like, some of those rocks.
No, it's just... There's just nothing really of note on the map.
It's not offensive enough to say what were they thinking, and it doesn't really feel like a total waste of a map. But it also doesn't really feel interesting. Like, I guess interesting idea is that hey, it's a massive army of green units. This at least is done better than 3P.
You
But
do
by
actually
how
need to like
much?
do something.
But by how much is questionable.
Yeah, I mean, it's more interesting in the sense of like because it's kill boss. Realistically, you're probably the one who's killing the boss.
Hmm.
Because like you can't control what the green units do like you would with yellow units, right?
Yeah.
But like it's not that much more interesting, really.
Hmm. Yeah. Speaking of interesting ideas but poor execution, welcome to Pitfall map going across the other way. Which
It's
I
interesting when
don't
they managed
actually
to.
hate this one as much.
It's interesting because like the way in which they implement it being painful is more interesting, but also I hate. I found this way more annoying to play than the Path of Radiance version.
It's odd because okay, on one hand, you have a lot more flyers. You
Yeah.
get Tanith, you get Sigrun. I think you also I forget if
You have yellow.
Tabarn
You have yellow.
is
You have yellow to Bond.
yellow unit Tabarn, yes. And then you have the other flyers. You have Janeth, you have Ulki, you get Leanne here to replace Rayson.
Yep.
So you have a lot of flyers. Granted, you had a lot of flyers on the other one, but they're better units in this game.
Yeah, it's
Path of Radiance flyers that aren't named Marcia, Jill, and potentially Tanith are not good.
yeah. But it's just really. I mean, I know that like narratively, the point of the map is to be annoying, which means that like I can't really say it's poor execution that's annoying because like it's clearly meant to be annoying with like the shine barriers that the various enemies use. But it's just so. I just found it so painful.
Yep. And you're discouraged from using only flyers because you have some powerful crossbows, including the Akar,
Yes.
which can one-shot Tabarn.
Yep.
Not many things can, but that can. So
Yeah, it's
yeah, shine barriers and the use of the ballistae and whatnot. Like, the point of this bridge is that it is the connection between Crimea and Dayan. It is basically, it is the boundary line. It is the hard stop. And it does a good job of being a hard stop. It stops you in your place real well.
Yeah. Literally.
But yeah, it's definitely one of those maps where it's like, I don't necessarily hate it as much as the Path of Radiance one because I feel like my units have more that they can do. And I think it's more interesting because the enemy AI also utilizes the map and is like, hey, we'll put down shine barriers, we'll make better use of the ballistas and stuff like that. And so it's like, conceptually, I think the map comes together better conceptually than the Path of Radiance one. It still is an annoying slog to play through.
Yeah, it's a real pain.
But I can't say it's a waste, and I'm not going to say what were they thinking, because it's very clear what they were thinking. They wanted to slow you down. I think you also get Ragnail here? Or is it after this map?
By now, I think you... I think by now you do have Ragnail.
I think this is the first map where you get Ragnail and can actually use it. So
yeah,
now it's like, okay, Ike is back at full power. Not that he was bad before, but now he has the sword, so...
Yeah.
He has the good 1-2 sword. Okay, next map, and here's one. Ooh, here's such a sweet, sweet, painful, frustrating, but also very cool map.
Yeah, it's really cool, and also really painful at the same time. Like... when I loaded it up, when I loaded it in this map, looked at my Dawn Brigade units and looked at the enemies, I was like,
"There's no way."
What on earth am I going to do?
And that's what the story as well is saying. They're like, "What are we gonna do?"
Yeah, literally. Like, so it's just they're like, Micaiah, this is like insane. Like if we do this, like we can't fight them.
Like even the
and
viewers
like,
at
but
home,
we have to.
Even the viewers at home can see. There's a lot of red dots on this map.
So
you don't have to kill them all. You only have to kill 40 of them. And there's like 80 on this map, not including the reinforcements that keep showing up.
Yeah.
You can... So what this map does, because they force deploy Toronio back here, and then they deploy the rest of your units over here. So Toronio, you at least have a guaranteed pretty strong unit to prevent them from coming up the ramps and all the flyers to fight them off. It gives a purpose, it gives something for your weak units to do by pushing the rocks at least a little bit, and then chipping down, like, combining to kill the Pegasus Knights that fly up, so long as you don't get them killed.
Leonardo is, and Nolan as well if he's promoted, can both do like a lot with like crossbows against those Pegasi to stop them from doing things.
And then your strongest units are going to go to the front, and this is one map where it's like you want to push forward much as you can, because you will get pushed back. Just because the enemies are so much stronger than your units. You will get pushed back, but you are going to be killing units the whole time and maybe being able to stop at... There's a couple of choke points you can utilize.
Yeah. No, I did really like enjoy the map, and then like until like we were starting to get close to like the number of enemies I need to kill, I was like, I have no idea what's surviving this time.
Yeah, because like there's easy soldiers to kill. There's some low, some soldiers and myrmidons, and then like some of the halberdiers and swordmasters aren't too strong. And then it's like once you clear out all the easy enemies, now it's like, okay, well, the enemy flyers are harassing all my weakest units. The biggest units are getting to the front, and I can't kill them. What do I do? And then the map is over. And
then the map is over, and you're just literally like, oh my gosh, thank goodness.
Yeah. Again, it's so weird that I say this, but I look back and I'm like, yeah, no, that was a really fun map. I really like that.
Yeah, at the time I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And then I was like, once it's over, okay, it's over. That was a lot of fun.
I guess that's the point here, is what we're finding out. Radiant Dawn maps are best when they get you very stressed about every single turn and every single move that you're making. And they're at their worst when they just kind of don't seem to care and are just like open.
Yeah.
Actually, no. They're at their worst when they ultimately really restrict what you can do and require you to do things in a very specific way. It's like Radiant Dawn doesn't really do puzzle maps that well.
It's not. And unfortunately, it has a lot of them.
It attempts to have a lot of them.
Yeah.
But speaking of another map that is often heralded, if it's not Alencia's Gambit, it's this one as people's most memorable and favorite map. 313.
I really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed it.
Do we send it straight to the top right now? Because this is like... They made the most interesting defend map in Fire Emblem.
Yeah, it's of the Fire Emblem games I've played, I definitely think it's the most interesting defense
I've
map
played every Fire Emblem game. This is the only good defense map. Okay, maybe not the only good one, but like this is definitely the best defend map. And the most similar map that it is compared to across games is Conquest Chapter 10.
Yes, which is always an encouraging sign.
Because one, you have that line that you need to protect. It's not a single point. Two, you have enemies that are stronger than your own. 3, you have some reasons to move out, at least initially. And 4, you have a turning point where the enemies get a wave of power.
Yeah. I think... So, like, obviously there's Conquest Chapter 10, and I think what differentiates this is that, to me, from Conquest Chapter 10 at least, is that in Conquest Chapter 10, it's like a trap to try and defend, because Takumi is going to activate the Dragon Bane, and all the water's going to go away, and suddenly the enemies can walk over terrain they couldn't before. Which means that, from the get-go, you're better off just going on the offensive.
Yeah.
Here, you kind of can't really do that as easily. So you actually have to defend.
Yeah, this is the map that makes best use of all of the terrain features that Radiant Dawn introduced, because there's not like a lot of cover terrain or anything, but they have ledges and choke points and ballistas and stone throwers that you can, shove the AI off and use yourself if you want to. Reinforcements come through all of these side paths.
They come from so many places. Like when they showed up, like right around like the top, I was like, wow, I need to get someone to like stand on that ledge right this second.
And just when you think that you're like, okay, you know, I'm running out of ballista shots, but I have the sides controlled, and I'm pushing through, I'm finally overpowering the Lagoos and maybe pushing forward, then the Greil Mercs that you trained yourself show up, and it's like, okay, no, full retreat for the last 5 turns.
Yep. Yeah.
It is just such an emotional... Like, this map executes perfectly on what it's trying to do, and it's also exactly why I do not like Micaiah's paralogue in Engage at all.
It feels so different.
It's hollow. Micaiah's
really
paralogue
hollow.
is a hollow shell of this map because it doesn't have the ledges, it doesn't have really any purpose of defending all these side points, because it's just a kill boss map that you just happen to start like 5 movement turns away from the boss on. It's not engaging at all. But this is, like I said, probably the best defend map that Fire Emblem's ever made, and I'm not necessarily holding out hope for them to make a better one.
Yeah, no, I think it like as you said, it does like so many things really well. Like the reinforcements, like they're really annoying, but like they're meant to be really annoying. Like you see them and you're like, oh my god, we need to like block you off now so you can't reach people.
Yeah.
And like the fact that like you're fighting all these Lagoos obviously means that like blocking off the ledges is so strong because they don't have 2 range. But you also have to be like aware of where the hawks are, and you have to like try to snipe them. There's like loads of interesting positioning where like because you need to get them out of the way to stop them from like killing the people who are blocking off the ledges, for instance. That like you maybe need to overextend like Leonardo or Nolan to crossbow them down and then somehow get them back to safety.
Yeah, and while you want to, you know, let the AI help, sometimes you have to tell them, no, stay still, I don't trust you, you need to stay at the top of that ledge and not hop down and get yourself killed.
Exactly.
Yeah, so really good use of every tool they give you. Fantastic map. One of the best maps in Fire Emblem, actually, maybe. Maybe that's going too far, but it's definitely up there.
I think it definitely would rank highly, yeah, although I don't know my exact rankings on top 5 maps, for instance.
I haven't thought that far ahead either, but it is a top tier map no matter how you slice it. Speaking of emotions, though, how did you feel when you saw that counter counting up on 3 endgame? Which I'm going to move up because I have to show it on the map.
It took me a moment to be like, what exactly is counting up? Because like, it's just like this big ominous, like kind of like pulsating 0.
Yeah.
And then like units start like, I started killing red units and the number went up, and then I was like, okay, does this only go up if I kill the enemies? Some green units started dying and it still increased. And I was like, okay, so I guess it's just deaths in total. So like that in those moments, I was just like, "What's happening? I'm so confused."
Yeah.
But also like, we kind of got to keep killing them.
I guess here's the thing: did you like try to skip? Did you skip through the story? Did you read it all? Like, what did you do with Radio Dawn? Okay.
I did read it.
Okay.
I figured that I should at least read through the stories of all the games at least once.
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely the climax of the entire story, and this map definitely feels like it could have been the final map. Or, like, if not the final map, it's like, this is one of the few Fire Emblem Teleus maps that does big scale well. In my mind.
Yes, I would agree. Because, like, even, like, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of green units doing things in general. But, like, in a sense, they are contributing towards, like, the goal, which is the increase of the death count.
Yeah.
Because, like, they are killing things, they are getting killed. Like, they are actually contributing in some form.
This is one of the best usages of green units in a Fire Emblem map, in my opinion, because they're there, they're doing things, but they're doing things that are out of the way of your units. They're not getting in your way, but you're also not, like, forced to, like, go and rescue them either.
Yeah, they kind of do their own thing.
Yeah, no, this is one of the best usages of green units, purely because while what they're doing matters, it's not, strictly speaking, important.
Yeah.
We're not relying on the green unit to do a thing, otherwise the map is not going well. but we're also not, like, having to rescue the green units or prevent them from doing a thing first, you know? It's not like, oh, this enemy drops a really good item, I need to get there first. Yeah. Fighting the Dawn Brigade soldiers are pretty much all... Like, it's interesting because you can also recruit Jill and Zahark on this map as well, but there's no real point to it if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Everyone joins the field. Kurthnaga joins the field. Peleus, I guess, technically doesn't join the field because he's probably dead by now on your first playthrough.
Lol.
Anna comes in and joins the field and then, you know, reaches Ike and is like, hey, you have to stop. And I think, is that what ends it? Or is it just when you reach 100 kills?
I think it is a certain number.
No, it's
like,
80.
I think it's like 80. Yeah.
80 is the number, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then Anna will shout to you. But something interesting that can happen is that there are sleep staves, and they like to target Ike because he generally has lower resistance. And so Anna will spawn as a green unit and then follow you, and then she stopped next to Ike, and her boon cured Ike's sleep.
Oh, that's funny.
One time I played this, yeah, that was fun. But yeah, interesting enemies that are tough, a reason to push through, green units that, you know, they don't necessarily matter, but still feel like they're adding to the
hidden
map.
item does provide like an actual reason to move forward, right? Although
Yeah,
I'm still not a fan of the fact that that's hidden item. I don't like the fact that it's hidden item. Like it does provide certainly an incentive to move forward if you know it's there.
Yeah.
But one,
what was the hidden items again? Oh, yeah, rescue. Yeah.
The rescue staff. Like one, how do you expect someone to know it's there on their first playthrough?
I was gonna say, where the heck is that rescue staff again? It's like
around like if you look around like the middle. It's like slightly to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like right there.
Yeah, just to the right of like Zahark's squad. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
like it does mean that like you need to actually like extend forwards, and like you do need like Heather to like ideally try and pick it up for you, right?
Yeah.
Which is an interesting endeavor, but like it's one of those things like I don't know how you'd expect someone to know that something is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where would you rank this? Put it pretty good. Do you think it's good enough to be solid?
I don't think it can go in solid because like the thing about it is I feel like a lot of it's getting carried across by like the story moment, which is like legitimately like quite a tense moment, right?
Yeah.
But I think on like repeat playthroughs where you're like, okay, we just need to like get 80 things killed. I feel like it ends up being like, okay, so we have to move you here. Let's make sure to get the rescue staff. It ends up being like pretty routine almost after like 313.
Yeah.
Right before it.
It does scale. It does a large scale well for Teleus by making the large scale not actively obtrusive. I think if you had to kill boss on this map, it would actually be worse.
Oh, it would be such pain. It'd be a huge pain.
Because there's so much more you have to fight through. Like, you are maybe getting to, like, the line of trees where the boss is by the time you hit 80. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting close to Kurthnaga, personally.
Yeah, no, I've never gotten into Siege Tone range of Kurthnaga before. Like, I've come close. But that actually would be an interesting challenge. Just see if you can fight and kill Kurthnaga before the map ends. Maybe a challenge for future maps. And then that's the end of Act 3, and then we get into Part 4. Everyone's a statue, and we split up the armies.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the army split, first of all?
It vaguely makes sense, right? In terms of, like, obviously we're going to have you're going to have Mkaya's group, you're going to have Ike's group, and then, like, you have Tiban/Lincia's group.
Yeah. It's definitely a narrative contrivance, to be sure.
Yes. I don't really know why everyone couldn't have just gone in one big group.
Yeah, their reasoning is like, well, we don't know. If Ashura's gonna blast us, we want to make sure that, you know, she doesn't blast all of us. And it's like... Yeah, bold of you to assume that she doesn't have the ability to do that, but also...
Yeah, it's a bit like, I don't know, if it seems like she's kind of blasted everyone on the continent, I'm not sure that you traveling in 3 separate parties is going to stop her.
Yeah, it definitely feels... I don't know, Part 4 is where the narrative of Radiant Dawn really starts kind of falling flat.
Yes, I agree.
Let's talk about the maps, though. The first one, for Prologue, it is a route map with a lot of reinforcements,
There's a lot of
and
reinforcements.
it's kind of annoying.
I mean, to be honest, my thoughts on like all of the part 4 non-tower maps are anywhere between like this is like literally just here to like give experience to units.
They're training
To
arcs.
yeah, to like this is really irritating. Can we please not?
It's like, okay, you get some vulnerable units, mostly just Soniki and Micaiah, and
Yeah.
then you get Nesala and Skrimir, and then whoever else that you decided to bring in that's, probably who you're trying to train actively. And
Yes.
so, but there are a ton of enemies, and they keep having reinforcements from turn 2 every turn up through turn 11.
Yep. Yeah. It's really annoying. I feel like it's
Is it a waste of a map? I don't.
thing is though it's not a waste of map because like it's very clear that like they want you to like raise training projects during this process, but it's so annoying. And it's also
Yeah.
not an interesting idea either
No.
because like oh yeah, this is for your training projects is not interesting.
Do I flip these 2 tiers? I don't know. Not that it really matters.
I think it really matters, but like yeah, I feel like it has to go in only okay by default, and yeah, I'm kind of there like I really don't like this map.
Yeah, it's like it's not as offensive on replays, but it's not interesting. It is just one of the maps of all time.
Basically. One of the maps of all time.
I mean,
It's accurate.
that's kind
It's
of what
accurate.
the tier is. Okay. Well, let's just blitz through part 4 then.
Yeah.
Like most players want to.
Yes.
Second map, same as the first. It's
No, I think it's poor execution because like it's the fact you've got like these healers that have physics saves and will otherwise like literally stand around doing nothing, and you still have to route them.
Yeah, it's another route map that's big. It has 12 turns of reinforcements, but there's also Fog of War, and there's a lot of healers with
Yeah, and
physics
then
saves.
I don't really understand what the idea was with Anna because like she got defeated for me, and I was like, oh, is she dead? And she was not in fact dead, and I was like, so why was she here in the first place? I don't understand.
Yeah, because she stands guard around the tent, right?
Yeah.
I guess that she's just... For some reason, I thought that like the enemy seizing the tent was a defeat condition, and so they put her there,
it was
but
not. It just was not.
but
And I
it's
was like,
not.
okay.
So I guess, yeah, there really is no point, aside from maybe having, like, a potential point to fall back to, if you need to.
Yeah, I don't
But,
know. I just ended up like low deploying this map and like having people like move like downwards in like down middle, and then like once everything was dead, I was like, okay, well I guess now we have to go searching for these physic priests then.
yeah. I forget, does Ike promote at the start of this map, or after this map?
I think that it was before this map because like it would have had to have been when Micaiah and Ike were together.
Yeah, Micaiah and Ike... Oh, yes, they're right, yeah, because he does get the promotion, and then... So this is just kind of like Ike's training ground?
Yeah, I bet.
is how it feels. Yeah, it's another part 4 filler map where it's like the enemy that you're fighting isn't interesting. There's no real plot significance outside of, oh, Mama Almeda is just being whiny, and congratulations, Mist can see shiny things on the ground, which I would have loved to have had maybe on a repeat playthrough. I don't know, all the hidden items sparkle on the ground? And not just like random 1 or 2 of them in part 4?
Yeah, that would have been far less painful.
Like I said, at the very least, it's just like, hey, you unlock so much quality of life for beating the game once. Like, you unlock hard mode, you unlock being able to see bonus experience drops. You unlock Peleus and, the alt story stuff with, super secret endgame character. You unlock all of that by beating the game once. Why couldn't you also unlock seeing hidden items on the ground?
Yeah.
Especially when they show that it's a thing here in part 4.
Yeah, no, I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah. It's, but that's not what they were thinking for the whole thing, not just this map.
Yeah.
I will say this map is better than the other Part 4
It's
maps.
better. It's better than. I mean, it's not hard for it to be better because the others are so bad.
Yeah, this is
Um.
Elincia and Tabarn. This is the Hawk
Yeah.
army. But you're fighting a lot of enemies that are threatening, but they're threatening specifically to your flyers.
They are.
Because there's a lot of crossbows, if I remember right.
There's a lot of crossbows. There's a lot of things like Blizzard siege tomes, for instance.
Mm-hmm. And this is also the first Part 4 map where you fight someone that you actually want to fight.
Yep.
You get to beat up Senator Valtome, which is very narratively satisfying, as he's the one that's been harassing Crimea the whole time and harassing Elincia. And it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, you can have Elincia just quad him with Amity, only if you took off Mercy from her in base preps, though.
Yes. I did not realize that she had Mercy applied to her, so I ended up resetting because I was like, we're removing this from me, this is really irritating.
Yeah, Mercy is such an interesting skill because it's the best at what it does, but you most of the time do not want it.
If it were a command, that would be one thing. It's not a command.
Yeah, it's like, I think that Mercy being the default, like on player phase, make it a command. I don't necessarily hate the concept of it being the default, because then it means... But I think I would like it more if you got it, like, early on in the game.
So much earlier,
And
yeah.
had it the entire time. Like, for instance, in Shadows of Valentia, you can unlock certain combat arts on Beloved Zofia and the Royal Sword, Subdue.
Yeah.
And Subdue is great. But oftentimes you don't really get a chance to subdue enemies that you want because they just die on enemy phase. Mercy, you don't have that problem. You have a different problem.
Yeah.
But
I
anyway,
guess it contributes to, like, it does contribute slightly to, like, the fact that this is, like, it's like a training project moment, but it's kind of is annoying.
it's a training map, but you also kind of, it's like, Elincia's the unit you want to train here.
Yeah.
And she can't kill anything now. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's weird.
Though I guess if you don't want, like, you might be wanting to train Peleus if this is your... And that's, like, the only way to guarantee that he'll get kills, because he's bad.
It's real bad. Real bad.
Yeah. It's a pretty good map overall, because there's incentive to go down both routes, even if it's not a ton of incentive. It's like, experience is your incentive.
Yeah, experience is your incentive, but then, like, I don't know. I still don't like the fact that, like, they're all... I don't like the fact they're all route maps, because it just means they take so long, because there's so many reinforcements.
Yeah, experience and an effective route, I guess, is your... But yeah, all the reinforcements come from this bottom right. Well, not all of them. It's bottom right and top left they come from.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
The top four maps are
Maybe
certainly
it's like the
maps.
top of one of the
have to-
maps of all time.
Yeah, no, we can't put that in pretty good.
Now that I've talked myself out of it, yeah.
Yeah, Desert. What were they thinking? I don't...
Welcome to the desert. Enjoy your stay. It's bigger this time.
No, I don't think we can put it in poor execution. Like, what were they thinking? Like, genuinely, what were they thinking?
Okay. I guess here's the question: is top or bottom of what were they thinking a good thing?
I don't know.
I guess bottom is the worst of the worst.
Yeah, bottom is the worst. I just...
This is the biggest desert they've ever made. Maybe unless you count FE4, which FE4's desert map is only like half desert.
Yeah. I mean, FE4 maps are themselves, so yeah.
Yeah, because desert by volume, this is a bigger desert. Because the other map, it's like, yes, it's a bigger map, but the Yi Desert is only like a quarter of the map. And the Chapter 5 desert is just the right side of the map. This, every single tile is desert. And I hope you like hidden items, because there are a ton of hidden items and a ton of very, very good hidden items.
Dragonfoe,
White Gem, a Laguz Gem,
yeah.
Basilard. What else?
I mean, I think the
I
most
can't
important
read.
ones.
I
I
can't
think
read
the most
Spanish.
important ones are the Laguz Gem and the Dragon Foe, for
Yeah,
sure.
Laguz Gem and Dragonfoe are very important. Baselard can be important if you want to get like a level of use out of Soth in the tower when he's force deployed, because it's the strongest melee dagger. And then
Yeah,
White Gem, by this point you have your swimming in money, so that's less
yeah. It
important.
doesn't really matter as much.
But getting Dragonfoe is really important, and getting the Laguz Gem, if you plan on using any non-royal Laguz, is definitely super important.
Yeah, and then like there's the Stefan recruitment as well, and I'm just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it just adds to the what were they even thinking moment, because like
Oh, the
when like I
Stefan
ended up
recruitment.
recruiting him, yeah, there's a Stefan recruitment on this
I
map.
was
You
gonna
have to
say
get
the Stefan
Micaiah,
recruitment is interesting because it's Micaiah or
Micaiah
Lethian
specifically.
Mordecai, but only if you transferred.
Oh gosh.
At least is what I remember from it. Maybe that's not because WOD doesn't say that.
I just remember reading that like you literally have to have Micaiah specifically stand on the tile, and I was like, sorry, what?
Yeah, because I remember reading that Lethian Mordecai could as well, but only if you transferred from FE9. So that makes it at least a little bit better because you have another unit that you can send out to the middle of freaking nowhere.
Yeah, I
This map is definitely one of them. It's worse than one of the maps of all time, I was gonna say, but it's worse
I
than that tier.
strangely though, like I actually think that the next map is worse. Blair.
Probably. I will say the saving grace for this map is that you can flyer load Micaiah's team.
Yeah, you can.
And if you flyer load Micaiah's team, this map is actually not bad because you're effectively running on whatever terrain you want, and it's just the enemies that are, restricted. I remember when I was doing a mass mage run, I mage loaded this Micaiah's team as well as flyer loading, and that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said that Oliver's Mansion Redux is even worse.
Yeah, I
Why
think
do
it's
you say
worse
that?
because I mean, like, okay, all of these maps so far have been like route, but then additionally, like, there are like, and like obviously like chests are like functionally the same thing as like hidden items, except for the fact that like you need to actually like unlock things clearly. But like there are like so many reinforcements from so many different locations, and some of them have siege homes, and like it just takes a really and like status saves, so many status saves. Uh, and also this is like the army that Raphael's on, and he is like the worst of the Karens at withstanding any kind of attack, which meant that when that reinforcement with a siege home spawned, he got sniped from lower ground by 2 hits of siege home and died. And I was like, what on earth
I
is
mean,
this?
that's just the game saying if you're not done by turn 14, you're doing it wrong. No. No, that is... I think the more painful thing is that he can't climb up cliffs.
Yeah, you can't climb up cliffs while transformed. It's just like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, it's while transformed he can't step up cliffs, but he can while he's not, because it's his
Yep.
wings that are broken, not his arms.
Yes.
So there is one path he can go through. It's the most winding path here to get to the end, or you can rescue him with someone else. And you have to drop him if you want to recruit the arguably secret recruit Oliver. Oliver has to be able to move to Raphael. Oliver is not a mobile boss otherwise, but if he has a clear shot to move to Raphael, he will talk to Raphael and recruit himself. I accidentally-ed myself into this in my very first playthrough. That's how I discovered it. And I thought Oliver was about to kill Raphael. Because it's like, wait, no, he moves. Wait, no, shoot, he can get to Raphael. Because I was just like, I cleared the rest of the map out. I was waiting on treasure chests. I'm just like, I'm just going to move Raphael up here, keep singing to get experience while I finish up getting the last chest, and then I'm going to, kill the boss. And then he moves. And then it's like, wait, that was a good thing, actually? That was so weird.
Yeah, like because I was playing on voice call, everyone was like, "Oh, if you have Raphael like end his turn within like all of his movement range, then like he'll one-shot the boss. And I was like, that's definitely not true. He doesn't have a way of attacking Oliver. And they were like, no, just do it. And I was like, I mean, fine, we can do it. And then it happened.
Technically
I was
not
like,
wrong.
oh, God. I was like, well, you were right.
You technically eliminated the boss as an enemy unit.
Yeah, so it was accurate, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
And then you get Ike's
But
famous line, "Can you please join the enemy again?"
yeah, I don't know. In a way, like because this map is indoors, and also like you're already so heavily incentivized to fly a load like Micaiah's group if you know what's coming up. I think that this just means that like you've got potentially like potentially your worst army here
Yeah.
on this map with status saves and like so many reinforcements.
And it does not help that Tormod Squad comes back in at the same
Oh, yeah,
level of effectiveness that they had in Act 1.
Yeah,
Which means Morim actually still holds his own. Tormod does not, and Vika is a flying liability.
Yes.
Like, she will get sniped by a siege tome.
I was playing on the Iron Man friendly patch. Is it a game over condition if they all die on this map?
Don't believe so, but it could be. I don't remember.
Because Radiant Dawn's the kind of game where, like, I could very easily believe that it was a game over condition.
Al parecer es si Vika Tormod o Muren en la primera parte aparecerán en la esquina inferior izquierda al inicio del turno 3 se necesita confirmar. So, it might be, but it needs confirmation. Heck if I know. What is
Yeah, it's just insufferable. It's an awful map. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna tier the "What Were They Even Thinking" map, because I don't hate it, but I agree that it definitely is. Like, okay, Micaiah's army, it makes sense. You flyer load it. Both these maps are really, like, flyers are necessary to make them make sense. To Barnes' map, you want some good flyers. You have Valencia and Tabarn himself, but you want some more flyers for that map, plus for this map. But then who does that leave you with for Ike's map? It's like, where do you put all your cavalry? Because if you put them in Ike's map, they can't do anything on this map.
They cannot go up the ledges.
But if you put them into Barnes' army, they can't really go into the swamp that well. And if you put them in Micaiah's army, they can't go into the desert. So it's just like your horses are screwed either way.
Yeah, Radiant Dawn hates cavalry moments, I guess.
I might put this into interesting idea, poor execution. This is infamously the grind map. Because Izuka can summon an infinite number of Feral Ones, and Void Seal, or whatever that skill is, didn't exist at the time, and so you can get effectively infinite amounts of experience on this map. Because the Feral Ones actually give a decent amount of experience, because they're force-transformed Lagoos.
Makes sense.
That said, he will teleport at random, I think. I don't know if it's set turns, or if it's purely random, or if it's just like if you attack him, he teleports.
I have no idea.
So much.
Because when I played this map, I don't have any thoughts on this map, because this map ended for me on turn 3. Not because like I used a use of rescue or anything, but I quite literally just had Tabarn fly basically directly towards Izuka, and like he didn't warp away, which meant that on turn 3 I could just have him walk up and kill him, and I was like, this feels like this was not what was meant to happen, but it has. So the map is just over.
So
now.
This is, yeah, his warping AI is odd. I'm not sure exactly what it's about, and I'm, spoiler alert, I'm not digging into specialist AI in my AI masterclass. That would be excruciating without knowing the game code. So
understandable.
I don't know what causes him to teleport. It could be turn-based. It could be fully randomized. All I know is that, you know, this is definitively... Like, if there was a map that literally just was titled Training Arc, it would be this map. You have a fun interaction with Volk, you know, paying him 50,000 gold, or what, promising to pay him 50,000 gold with Bastion, or whatever. You can do some stuff with your flyers. Ultimately, though, no matter how much you decide to train and grind and whatnot on this map, it's going to be ended by you throwing Tabarn at Izuka. It's just a matter of how long does it take Tabarn to actually get there, and how much does Izuka teleport away and put dragons in front of him.
Yeah.
Interesting idea for a map, not the best execution. It's hard to say that, like, Gaiden did, like, summoners better, because I don't necessarily think that's strictly true. But it's like, if done right, this map could have been as stressful as the Biggle swamp map in Gaiden.
The Biggle swamp map is so stressful.
But it doesn't really feel like that. It just kind of feels like, unless you get a really unlucky roll, because it seems like he summons completely different Laguz every time and teleports to completely different locations every time. So if you're on an unlucky RNG seed and brought a lot of weak units, it might feel like that sometimes. But it's never going to get to that height. And I feel like that map is always going to be one of those, like, weird... The Biggle map is going to be one of those weird maps where it's like, nothing's ever kind of going to beat it at being just what it is. And what it is a map that you can very easily end turn 1, but if you don't... Oh boy.
Yeah, it can spiral out of control real quickly.
Yeah. Speaking of maps, though, that don't spiral out of control, Into the Tower.
Yes.
So, before you go into the tower, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so people can see all the tower maps, because we've extended the tier list, and the maps are off screen now. Before you go into the tower, you can choose from, like, any unit you have. You get, like, 6 Royal Laguz, which are made for the tower. You get a couple other units that aren't Laguz, but are, like, pre-promote tier 3s that are basically made for the tower. Volk's actually not a terrible pick for the tower, because his stillness he can do some cheesy things with that. But you get to pick your units, and then you are forced into 5 maps in a row of enemies that, honestly, for the most part, are not as difficult as I wished they would be. Like, you only fight one tier 3 enemy in the entire game, and technically you don't even have to fight him. Because, I'm gonna call him Leiron, is a different class. I don't think he's a tier 3 class, I think he's a unique class. Degencia...
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, Degencia is, you know, his own class, Ashura is her own class. So it's just... the map 2 mini-boss, technically, that is a tier 3 Sentinel.
To be fair, it would be really irritating if you fought a bunch of tier 3s because of the way the class skills work.
That is fair, because getting tier 3 means you unlock the class skill, which is basically if it procs, it kills.
Yeah.
For most of them.
Allegedly has some other effects. Allegedly.
Some of them do, because some of them don't actually kill, because the units they're on are weak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. First tower map. It is... I think the first one is Route.
Yeah, I think this one's Route.
Yeah.
I think this one's, like, it's fine. Like, I think that the, the plus defense tiles, or, like, the plus, res tiles, like, those are cool. Like, the buff is actually a significant amount of bulk, right?
Yeah.
You can aim for, like, all these funny interactions with, like, the boss of this map. I don't understand his AI with the warping around, but, like, he does certainly warp around.
He only warps around if you get close to him, but you don't kill him.
See.
But he only warps around to, like, 3 different places. And those places are, like, usually places that you've already cleared out before, and so it's just like, okay, now I turn my army around again.
Yeah. I think that part is like, that part just sounds kind of weird. I mean, I remember like having a funny moment on this map, but that's because like people encouraged me to spend so much gold, I had less than 50 left, and then have Volk try to open up the chest in the top left corner. And doesn't let you, because he'll charge you 50 gold
He
for it
still
still.
charges 50 gold even in Radiant Dawn.
Yep. But, like,
That's
they didn't
funny.
intend for this interaction to happen. So it literally just says there, dummy, as in, like, dummy text they haven't filled in.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I emptied my coffers, but I didn't realize that if they were that empty. Like, I think it's like a... It's not anything useful. It's like, maybe it's like a sleep... No, the sleep staff is on Hetzel.
Yeah.
He has the Rexora, Lacane has the Rexora, and yeah, Lacane can teleport to any one of these 4 corners of the map. So it can be really
yeah.
annoying if he teleports to, like, the bottom right corner. And then it's like, well,
Okay, that sounds really annoying. Does that actually have to go lower then?
yeah. It's... I mean, I'm still gonna say it's the bottom of one of the maps of all time, in my
Okay.
mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that it's like... This is like, welcome to the tower. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with that.
Like, you want to push forward into the middle, but the enemies are strong enough that you can't really do it.
Yeah.
But also, like, you kind of have to eventually.
Yes.
And so it's like, you're just kind of at a bottleneck with enemies that are very high defense and pushing up against you. High bulk, I guess. And that are still strong enough to attack you back and hurt you back, even if they're not one-rounding you, unless you're using mages or untransformed Lagoos. Or trying to fight with Soth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
It's not offensive, but it's not super interesting. I'm gonna say the Black Knight fight is an interesting idea, but poor execution.
I mean, the more execution is the fact that you can hammer him to death, yeah.
Yeah, his armor lost its blessing. Either that, or the hammer is just, like, sacred, because you only get 2... You can only find 2 of them in the game, and one of them is, like, in the Dawn Brigade, and the other one is you have to steal from an armor knight in middle of Act 3.
It's true. Maybe the hammer was the true legendary weapon all along.
Yeah, not the hero we needed, but the hammer we deserved.
Exactly.
You have a lot of stuff happening on the south, which is... There's occasional bits on this map, I think, of the... So you have the terrain tiles, which are very easy to overlook, but are the strongest terrain tiles in the game. You have...
What's the bonus?
So there are 3 different types of terrain tiles, maybe 4. There's the Wardwood tiles, which give, like, plus 10 resistance.
Yeah, it's plus 10.
There's the the cover tiles, which give plus 10 defense.
Yeah.
And then there's an alternate version of the cover tile, which gives plus 5 defense and plus 15 avoid.
Okay.
So, some pretty powerful terrain tiles. I think only the... I don't remember if all of them are on this map, but they start appearing, like, all throughout the tower. And
Yeah,
so I wanted to say that there's
remember-
not really a lot of terrain, but you do have these tiles to kind of stage your units around.
Yeah. I don't know, I think it's one of those things of, like, yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea, theoretically, for, like, the lower half, but, like, it just ended for me on, like... It ended for me on turn 2 player phase because, Ike just hammered the Black Knight.
Yeah, the Black Knight will always walk into one range, even if you're on a cover tile, and then you just can hammer him to death. Or you can fight a long, drawn-out battle with the Ragnell like you're supposed to, and, like, constantly heal Ike with Physic through the wall, which is somewhat interesting, and then, lend some credence to what the units are doing down there. But also, I think the only other thing that, like, is kind of interesting about this map is that if you're using it as an attempt to try and still train your dragons up. Like Enna, and especially if you're training Kurth Naga, this is a potentially really good point to train them at, because you can put them at a plus defense tile, and then they can actually see a lot of combat. Even if they can't kill, they're still at least bulky. But other than that, it's like, okay, you want to kill the boss to get the Wishblade, because the Wishblade is is your SS tier Throne Lance, which is great. It's fantastic. But aside from that, it's like, oh great, more experience for all the units that they're already in the tower. Do I really need that much more experience?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, you're fighting dragons next chapter, but... Any final thoughts on the map?
No, I mean, this map I don't have thoughts on because I literally was like, wait, the Black Knight was able to get damaged in like some previous maps where I had control of him.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I guess I was like, let's bring along a hammer and see if that does any damage to him, and then it just did, and I was like, oh well, okay, that ended quickly.
Yeah. Tower 3, you have dragons. Only dragons. Though dragons are more threatening in Radiant Dawn than they are in Path of Radiance because they have 1-2 range.
Yeah.
And you at least have a mix of white and red dragons. White dragons have deal magic damage and have low defense but high resistance. And the reverse is true for red dragons. They're very bulky defensively and deal physical damage, but have really low resistance. And so, if you brought mages into the tower, this is where they at least have a purpose to do some stuff with the dragons. Generally, what you're going to want to do is usually bless a siege tome and just siege tome the dragons away, because they're also so slow.
Yeah, I had moments where my Micaiah, who is not known to be a fast unit, was able to double some of the dragons with Purge, while Sanaki was not able to with her own siege tome because she has no strength.
Yeah, Sanaki really suffers even more so. I remember this map being somewhat interesting in my run where for some reason I brought most of the mages except for Tormod. I didn't bring Tormod.
Rip Tormod.
Yeah. I just didn't have enough to raise him up after raising Ilyana and Sorin and Khalil and... Did I bring Bastion too? I think I brought Bastion because he comes basically pre-promoted. I brought all the mages and all the generals. Because I was just like, you know what? Let's try it. And this map was a pain.
Oh god, yeah.
Because the generals could not deal damage to the red dragons and could not survive the white dragons, except for Toronio, who has very high resistance as a marshal. That was interesting. And then the mages could kill the red dragons, but couldn't really survive them if they got hit. And couldn't do anything to the white dragons, but like walled them effectively because they're high resistance. It was a weird show. It was a weird map.
Yeah, that sounds really strange.
All in all, I don't hate this map. I think for a final map, this is one of the best, like, monotype enemy maps that we kind of get.
I agree.
I don't love the map, but I don't hate it. And the boss is a very... The boss is actively threatening, and you are still rewarded for training Kurth because he will not attack Kurth.
Yeah, it was really... I don't know. I don't really have, like, many thoughts on this map because... I didn't like. I like the fact that like you can clearly like tell which dragons target which stat, and like how they're statted and what they use, and then like there's the cover and Woodward tiles around, which means that you can make people better at facing off against one of the types at a time, right? But then like I wasn't exactly around on the map for very long because some like people were like, oh, Digintia has like an AoE attack, and I was like. He does? I was like, I don't know how much damage it's going to do, so let's just try to end this before then.
Yeah,
and I also never had Aya procced against me, but apparently that's really annoying.
Yeah, so Ire is just a guaranteed crit. It's just triple damage, no other effect. His AoE, I think, is 10 tiles, but it might be 7 away from him. And he uses it on set turns. And then he has the Mantle skill, so he can only be harmed by whatever weapon you chose to bless. But he also has, like, 40-40 defenses, I want to say. No, it's 50 defense, 46 res.
Oh, wow.
He is a bulky boy.
Yeah.
And deals... how much damage is his breath weapon? It doesn't say, because he has 50 base strength. Plus the breath weapon, which I think is maxed out, so I think it's like a 22. So I think he's like 72 damage. Heals for his luck every turn, so he heals for 30 every turn. And it's 30 speed, 50 defense, 46 res, and 100 HP, so he is thick.
Yeah, he is.
Like, one of the thickest units. I don't remember the exact stats of the final boss, but we'll get there in 2 chapters. What do you
Yeah,
think of Sephiron and the Spirits?
it was really boring. It was pretty boring.
It is it even an interesting idea? Like, I'm not going to say it's a waste of a map because I think it's
there's like
still
an
interesting.
interesting idea vaguely there because like the spirits like having their 20 move means that they are just Gaiden or
They're
Echo's witches,
they're basically
right?
Echo's witches, but because they have a traditional move, they act like traditional units, kind of.
Yeah.
They're kind of weird in who they target. Like, they will target whoever has lowest resistance. They're Tellius, it's Tellius AI, so they're going to prefer to not get counterattacked, and they have, 1-2 range, and they'll try to target the units beyond that don't counter them. And so it's like, Gareth is not necessarily a huge liability because he at least counters them, assuming that you have other units that have 1-range weapons equipped.
Mm-hmm.
That said...
And also, like, there's all the wardwood on the floor as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's tons of wardwood. I think this actually has some wardwood tiles that give evasion. No, there's not. There's not, but a Sephiron is on a super cover tile, which gives 10 defense and 15 evasion.
I see.
Yeah, so he's, bulky, and then he will consume the spirits around him if you damage him, but don't kill him and don't kill the spirits. Kind of in a weird way, like FE3, Book 2... What's his name?
Medius?
Medius, yeah. Why did I forget the name of Medius? It must be getting late. I don't know if he consumes the spirits, but I think the spirits teleport to him and heal him?
I see.
I think.
I mean, I wouldn't know.
Or is that just the auras in the next chapter?
I think it's just the... Actually, I have no idea.
I don't remember. I feel like they do, but I don't remember. And unfortunately, this site is in Spanish, so I can't confirm that. Honestly, it kind of feels pretty typical for a Fire Emblem boss fight stage endgame. Here's the boss, here's their minions, here's some weird gimmick he has. He has the Cradlead, which... I think his AoE can inflict some status effects on people, but I don't remember.
I have no idea because I never saw it.
How quickly did you kill Sephiron?
I killed him on like turn 3 or something.
Because
like turn 2 or turn 3.
Yeah, because you have sets of spirits that will come in every single turn. There is a different set of spirits, and this continues on until turn 50.
On 50?
Yes.
Oh lord. Okay, I did not know there was that many of them.
Yeah, so starting turn 2... So there are 4 cycles of reinforcements. There's one that starts turn 2, 1 turn 3, 1 turn 4, and 1 turn 5. And for the most part, they all alternate like every 4 turns. So it's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and just keeps going until turn 50.
Why? That's so unnecessary.
To encourage you to kill the boss and stop farming the spirits. I don't know.
I did kill him, but like, wow, that's... Wow.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of a boss fight where he's nowhere near as bulky as Degencia was. And so if you brought in Raphael, then you just charge forward, quad dance, and then just snipe him pretty easily. Wait, no, here's what it is. The spirits have guard.
Oh yeah, I did kill
the spirits next to the spirits have guard, and they will teleport next to him if you leave open space. So basically you have to kill the spirits, all the spirits that are next to him, and then kill him because the spirits will take the hit because they all have guard. That's what it is. I remember now. I figured it out because that's what's preventing a turn 1 kill. Because there are 4 spirits adjacent to him that have guard.
That makes sense, yeah.
He is just outside of your movement range to start with. Other than that, kind of underwhelming, but that's not the final boss, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because we have... Let's be honest, it's a Fire Emblem final boss. It's a math boss. But it also happens to end up being, in a weird way, one of the more interesting final bosses, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't really know what I think about this map because, like, okay,
This could go
so
anywhere.
it literally could go anywhere, and I honestly like, because like, it's interesting that like you have to like kill all the auras around her, and that they also like counterattack with like half damage of what you're attacking with. So, like, you need to like actively like keep in mind how much HP your units have, right? And then
Yeah,
like, but then like, whenever she does her random thing each turn, I was like, I have no idea what the heck she's doing.
yeah, definitely. It's... So it's one of the things where she has basically a rotation of every turn she will do a set thing for that turn. So she'll do a big AoE, she'll do a targeted attack, she'll do a mass silence in a set order. And basically that will repeat up through, you know, the certain number of turns. I don't know the specifics because I can't read Spanish, and it's been a couple of years since I've played it, but yeah, she has a set rotation. It's one of the few maps that does this. In a way, it's a little bit more interesting than like the Demon King fight, where he should have a rotation but doesn't really follow it after the first turn. You have the spirits, they come in, they can heal the mantle, they can heal the auroras, as well as them having mantle and regenerating luck HP every turn.
Yep.
Any unit that you give Nihil to doesn't take counter damage, and if you deal a finishing blow, you don't take counter damage.
Yes.
So it really encourages... I like this type of final boss because it really encourages you to make the most of the units you have and the opportunities you have. All of the enemies have Nihil, so you can't proc skills, you can't rely on, you know, random stuff like that, aside from some crits. But you can't rely on like your tier 3 proc skills. And so it's just do the math, figure it out, be safe, and be prepared for the big AoEs and, you know, targeted credit and whatnot, and judgment, because she has that.
Yes.
And then get ready for the fight and make sure Ike deals the final blow.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that Ike has to deal the final blow.
Yeah,
as a gameplay thing.
It's one of those things of like, they had this in Blazing, you know, Binding Blade with Roy, but they made it optional, and they made that, hey, an optional, like, extra ending. This one, they're like, no, we only have one ending. Ike has to do it.
Yes, I did not like that.
It's not, like, it doesn't kill the fight for me, because I think the rest of the fight is still... It's interesting because it's so different.
Yeah, it is very different, for sure.
And I like that. And it means that, yes, your units are very strong and overpowered, and the game is counting on your units basically being maxed. It's why they give you the Royal Lagoos, to guarantee you'll have someone to be able to kill the final boss with.
Yeah, I don't know, I just...
But how much does that interestingness carry, I guess, is the question.
I mean, I found it interesting, but like, I almost feel like Engage has since done it better, because like, although like we make fun of Engage for like telling us like it's gonna like have, it literally has like tutorials pop up during the final boss. It's like, it's a bit ridiculous, but like it meant that I was like, oh, so this is what's happening next. Whereas like with Ashura, I was just there like, I have no idea what's gonna happen now.
Yeah,
Something's gonna happen now.
I think that is true, and that's one of those things that modern games have definitely shown, that by giving a flag of telling you what's going to happen, it makes it more engaging and better. And that is the one thing that's keeping this from really being in fun and unique tier for me, is the fact that you know, unless you've memorized her rotation, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when you have to like rescue your weak units, when you have to heal up everyone, when you have to prepare to unsilence all your healers, you know.
Like I think the first attempt I made of this finale map involved Micaiah getting one shot on literally like Ashura's first like big AoE thing, and I was like,
Yeah,
sorry, I was like,
same.
what on earth?
Same.
And someone was like, did you like move her like closer to Ashura? I was like by like 2 tiles. I was like, I didn't know how I was expected to know that was happening.
Yeah, because I forget if there's damage fall off.
Yeah, there is damage fall off, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, the further away you are, the less damage you take." And I was like, "I don't know how I was meant to know that."
You're not. It just you figure it out once it happens, but unfortunately, I think yeah that's what keeps this from being top tier, is because the only way to figure out the map is trial and error.
Yeah,
But it is one of those final fights that actually makes you use all of your units, and that you really feel like you are just scraping yourself across the finish line.
Yeah, you definitely feel like you're like hammering away at like all of Ashura's like auras and stuff. I don't know. I'm not sure I put it. I wouldn't put it that far up in solid personally, but I can definitely see it being in solid rather than like pretty good.
Okay. Well, now that we've tiered all the maps, are there any things that are just standing out that you cannot abide? And or do you think we should start, you know, tiering within tiers?
I kind of feel like 1-4. I don't know. I personally prefer 1-4 to the Ashura fight. The golden room.
Oh,
I
you
personally
prefer 1-4 to the Ashura fight. Interesting.
Yes, I do. I don't know. I just really like the fact that it's like, well, we've got these units that can't survive very many hits, but you know, if you're going into this enclosed space, if you don't get out of this enclosed space, you're going to have to like tank things, face tank some things.
Okay. I kind of feel a little bit like 1-4, like I do with some of the Act 2 maps, where it feels like I really don't have too many options to clear it. I just kind of have to do it and have to get through it. But that's also just me, and that's why it's in pretty good, because it's kind of between our things. Because you think it's a solid map, I think it's just one of the maps of all time, so...
Yeah. Maybe move Ashura's down to like top of pretty good, I think.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's a full tier difference between them, at least for me.
Okay, I mean... I guess if that's the one that we're tiering based on, then we can just move that up to solid. What was this one again? The heck was this map?
That's 1-3, I think.
Oh yes, the jail escape. Yeah, I'm okay putting that over the jail escape. Now that I think about it. Any other standouts that are like notably? I think this is like better than some of these, but.
It's definitely better than some of them. I think it's better than
Like I think we can move like this down. If we can move that down, we can probably move this down too.
Yeah.
That one's not bad. This is probably better than. Is this map really that interesting? Do we do like this or something? Split the difference here.
Yeah, I think that looks about right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting idea, poor execution. What's the top of this? Was this the... Not the Sephiron fight.
That's a Sephiron fight.
Maybe this one's the top of this?
Yeah, maybe, actually.
Because the only thing that's keeping it down is, like, the green units dying.
Is the green units.
Meanwhile... these other ones, those Greil Merc maps, they're just not...
It's not good. They're
just not great. Is that worse than the Swamp? I think so, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the Swamp's actually probably better than the Fog one.
Yeah.
But, where do I put that lower? I don't know. This is where it starts getting hard, and it's like, okay.
I think it's fine.
If we go back to solid tier, Alencia's Gambit definitely at the top.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd put the prologue at the top above these other ones.
I would not put the prologue above 1-4 and Ashura, yeah.
I think the prologue... I'm mostly tiering it as a prologue map and not as a map, because I think as a map, it is just pretty good.
it goes down to pretty good, definitely.
Yeah, so it might just be like the top of pretty good then.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's hard for a prologue to really earn, you know, fun and unique.
Yeah. I also think that 1-4 is better than 1-2, which we also have, which we have both above Ashura and
Yeah, and then 1-3.
that's 1-2. Although I do agree that 1-1 is also worse than that.
Yeah, 1-1, 1-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, even so, these are, you know, we're knocking them down a peg. They're still fun maps. They're still
Oh yeah,
interesting.
they are.
Those are certainly some of the maps of all time. And yeah, this is I don't bother. I don't really feel like I should bother tiering these within tiers when there's
Yeah, because
just
we just don't know what they're thinking.
who's the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Hard to say. Anyway,
It's
though.
interesting though, because the Dawn Brigade maps on average did like pretty well. And
Oh
then
yeah, no, the Dawn Brigade
Remote
maps on average, like part 1, on average is pretty good.
yeah.
Part 3, all the Dawn Brigade Part 3 maps are the only fun and unique maps in the game, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, it's like the couple of things that are keeping Elincia's Gambit from being up there with them, with the big boys, but I'm trying to leave with my tier lists the top tier, the S tier, for only like the best of the best, like to leave it be the try to have it be the smallest tier, unless there's a even smaller tier at the very bottom.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
And
But yeah,
I'm okay with this tier list, I
uh,
think, overall.
yeah, I think I'm okay with it as well.
Alrighty, well, any last minute goodbyes, last minute words, things you want people to check out?
At this stage, I don't think so. You can check if you want. You can probably check out the Path of Radiance review in the description. I think it'll be a while before I have the Radiant Dawn review out. But yeah, I mean, I will end up mentioning in the Radiant Dawn review my brief thoughts about the maps as well. But like, yeah, I'm glad that someone else agrees that the Greil Merc maps on average are substantially worse than the Dawn Brigade ones.
Yeah, when I started this tier list, I was like, yeah, I remember part 3 maps are pretty good, and then I'm going through them, I'm like, no, 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 no. Yeah. When you actually go through them and think about them just on a map-wise, no. They do struggle. And the ones that are better with the Grail Mercs are only better because they're, like, have interesting gimmicks. There's a reason the Horses map is brought up as like one of the best maps, because it's one of the best Grail Merc maps in Part 3, not because it's inherently a great map.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, again, just want to shout out C2 Peekly again. Thank you so much for being a channel member. Thank you everyone who made it through to the very end. I promised it wouldn't be, 4 hours, but it's pushing as long as Elet's was. Not quite, but close. Thank you again for anyone who watched all the way to the end. Leave a like, follow Akira as well. Akira is definitely one of the, in my mind, interesting up-and-coming Fire Emblem YouTubers of all time. So, let's keep it going, keep that hype train going. If you haven't checked out their content, go for it. It's really solid. But anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Mithril Zenith, signing out.